Hello, good evening and welcome and good morning and good afternoon and whatever time of day it is wherever you are. It's another Bollocks. Yes, it is the Between Christmas and New Year Bollocks, something that I've been doing ever since we first put this show together. I say we, I of course mean me. Yeah, I don't know, I've always liked the concept of delivering you Christmas presents, giving you something extra for putting up with me all year round. And this would seem like basically the ultimate present, more of the podcast which you seem to like so much. So here it is. Here is more podcast. I give you heap big more podcast. I hope you like. So, there you go, just a little bit of casual racism there. I'm not sure who I offended, but I would imagine several races and generations of those races. So, I've really just sort of chatted shit, Gav, just spat bars, bruv, at you in the previous podcast. And to be honest, I'm doing this, I may as well be honest with you, I am doing this about 20 minutes after finishing part one. I'm getting stuck in because it's a busy time of year and I've got the Godless part. Basically, once I finish interviewing Godless tomorrow, I'm going to drop his interview straight into this episode and then it'll be ready. And then I've got to get a video made, which takes ages on fucking Windows. So I've got to, and basically it's a lot of shit, but I need to get it all done before I head up north. So you don't get any Christmas podcasts with clocks going off in the background. There's one for the old school. But yeah, basically it means that all the content that I need to produce is done. I hate the word content. I know, fucking sorry. All of the shit I've got to get ready is done, all right? So anyway, a little peek behind the curtain and shit that you couldn't give a fuck about. So, shit you couldn't give a fuck about. How eloquent is this podcast? Cunt. The phrase is not very eloquent. So, not a lot's been happening in the world of metal since half an hour ago when I finished recording the last one. I am also putting together the Bollocks podcast, and there's all sorts of bits and pieces for you. Albums of the year will be heading your way in January. Looking to get an all new great new guests, and you're going to have a great fun podcast whenever you listen. So anyway, I would imagine this is going to be a fairly longish one because I've got No Friender coming up now, then we've got Godless, then I'm going to stick the Dan stuff that I've already got recorded on the end there as well, have a little bit of a catch up for you all with Dan. So there you go, that's it. I'm going to get straight into this. Now, my friend, No Friender, is a hard man to track down, and I mean, even episodes of his podcast are in decline at the moment. Well, not in decline, they're just they're like rare gems, and when you get one, you should savour it rather than scoff it down immediately. Scoff it down. Who eats fucking precious stones? What am I basically doing this for? Is this podcast for Gollum? Is it? That doesn't make any sense either. Fucking hell. Anyway, he's hard to get hold of. He hasn't been doing many shows recently, but he has recently been to see Slayer on their last show and Violence. So what more do you want? And this interview classically finishes with me having to go because shit was kicking off that I had to go and get sorted. And that's the way my life seems to be. So here it is. This is myself and No Friender having a chat just the other day. Actually, before I do that, here's me and him having a chat the other day, but also the No Friender podcast, or rather the Thrash Metal podcast, go to thethrashmetalshow.com. He'll plug it himself, but it's an awesome podcast, and if you haven't checked it out already, then shame on you. What the fuck are you doing with your life?
Sir.
Hello there, sir.
How do I sound?
You sound fine.
All right, great.
You sound just the way you do on your podcast, authoritative and clear.
Oh, perfect. That is exactly what I wanted to hear.
Well, there you go, buddy. Just contact me for compliments in the future.
I'm going to just have a soundboard of you complimenting me. When I need one, I'm just going to press the button and it's going to say things like that.
Absolutely. I'm down with that, my man. I'm down with that. So, what kind of unfeeling monster goes to see Slayer and doesn't have any emotion?
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. What the fuck's wrong with you?
I was hooked up. I decided, let's just see this. So I hooked myself up to all like the biometric equipment that would measure like any little pulse, all the things,
Yeah.
temperature, and everything was flatlined. There was nothing.
Turns out you're dead inside.
Yeah, absolutely. Although violence can bring the life. That was an altogether different experience.
Oh man! Well, look, am I going to interview you first, or do you want to interview me first, or do we?
No, you definitely interview me first, and then
Right.
and I got to see, because I might not be able to do the full thing with you interviewing the reverse today.
Oh,
So
that's brilliant. Okay, in which case, let's yeah, man. Okay, we can come back to Slayer, but yeah, the violence experience. It sounds like you had a full-on trip back to 1989.
This was back in time for both me at shows and for just shows, period, man. This was just completely, it was 19, Phil Demmel, in one of the interviews I read, shortly before going to the show, he sort of said, hey, we're doing these shows, no backdrop, nothing, it's just it's 86 all over again. And it's exactly what it was.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That is awesome. So yeah, you had the full on no bullshit. We're just going to smash these songs out experience.
Absolutely. It was as if you just saw your friend's band playing their first show. There was no barricade. There was nothing. Absolutely nothing. I mean, it was the stage was at most 2 feet high. Some monitors in front. No separation between the audience and it was guys were getting on stage all night long and stage diving. No, there was no security that was impeding them or making sure they were off stage. It was as real as it gets.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome, because that's the way it should be. Sounds like an Acid Rain show.
Yeah, I'm long past going in. I'm not a pit guy. I like to stand on the side and just take it all in. But you go to violence. I think it's disrespectful to stand on the side and take it all in, especially violence, considering Sean Killian, if no one else, deserves the best I can offer. So I was right up there, and since I am I'm 6'2", I'm a taller than most, so I was constantly getting clobbered in the head by crowd surfers who were going up on stage. My glasses got destroyed. It was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. It was perfect. That's exactly what you want from a violence show.
If you're not expecting that, then, or if that happens and you're upset, then to take a song from Violence, you have a mental affliction.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, as well, is I can tell in your voice that when you say my glasses got broke, it's just kind of yeah, that's so fucking cool that my glasses got broken.
There's no better place.
Yeah.
Granted, it helps that I had a backup, well, not with me, but I had a backup pair to put on and move on with life and get the others fixed at some other point. But it's it's a badge of honor to me. I almost think it's disrespectful to the band to get those glasses fixed. Actually, now that I think about it, I think they should be encased, enshrined. I'll send them to Sean or Phil or whoever and say, "You hold on to these."
Yeah. Put them in the Violence Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Or if there, at minimum, if there's a bootleg of the concert, that should be the cover.
Yeah, just a busted up pair of glasses. This is really weird, because I had somebody come up to me at my at the album launch show we did, and she said I did my first ever stage dive, and then proceeded to show me a pair of glasses that was snapped perfectly in half.
That is, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
First of all, I enjoyed the show. I don't need the glasses. I just have a mild prescription. So, you could wonder why someone with any level of intelligence would wear unnecessary glasses in the pit at Violence. That aside, it all worked out for the best.
Well, yeah, and I'm really jealous. That is just an incredible experience, and listening to you talk about it on your show as well. It was you kind of compared the two back to back, and I'm guessing you kind of got more out of the Violence show than the Slayer show. I kind of understand why as well, because like you didn't get to see Violence back in the day, and it's a completely different experience. Obviously, a club show and everyone's going fucking nuts than an arena tour. Yeah, what did you think to the Slayer show?
It was top to bottom. It was a great show. I mean, as you know, it's a completely different experience being, in essentially a hockey arena, having excellent hockey seats, which are great concert seats. But I mean, it's just an entirely different experience. So it's almost not, you can't even. It's almost like they're not even the same sport. They're just so different. But I mean, Slayer. There's still always that vibe of the last time I saw them, it was the lineup, and I'm not like a guy who's completely, some people are fanatical about like if the first guitar tech is no longer with the group, then it's not the original lineup.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I put it this way, perfect example. I thought I'd go to an Acid Rain show, and I have no problem going to an Acid Rain show. It's Acid Rain,
Right.
But
yeah.
At the same time, when you lose, Hanneman, you can't do anything about. That's just brutal, especially considering what he was to that band. And, Bostov's great, but Dave's a legend, and it would have been, even if just Dave was there instead of Bostov, again, not taking anything away from Bostov, but it being the final tour would have made it all a little bit more, a better finality to it. But the show itself, the performance from everybody, the fire. What's amazing is that I know they've done this on some recent tours that I just didn't see, but
yeah,
to me, fire is so much better than just like the bombs and the pyro. It's like it's just this constant visual. There's no explosions that may be like drowning out music or whatever. That's a great sort of. I don't know how long it's been going on, but a great innovation in concerts in that it's like, my God, what you can do with just a wall of fire. If there's any better visual presentation for Slayer than a wall of fire, I'm at a loss to figure it out.
No, I think they got that right. I think they really went balls out on this is the final tour and we're going to make sure that it's the best production that we've ever had, and it clearly was. You have obviously also clearly never seen Rammstein.
No, I haven't.
Oh, mate, that's a whole going to see Rammstein makes that Slayer show look like a Rush show. It's a whole other level shit. It really is. But you got to like Rammstein first, and they're not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
But no, I completely agree. I thought the show was awesome. And look, you were getting this version of Slayer.
Yeah,
and
I knew what I was going to see, and it was great. That's about I wasn't surprised or blindsided by. Oh wait, where's Hanneman?
Yeah. But I've because I'm obsessive. I've been arguing quite a lot with people online. Just when the tour finished and. We were posting on all Acid Rain social media saying, look, thanks for the albums, thanks for the songs, thanks for the gigs, thanks for the music, thanks for the inspiration. And a lot of people just giving it the whole, oh, they'll be back. Oh, yeah, oh, no, it's I'll give it 2 years. And I just think, then you haven't read an interview with Tom Araya for about a decade then.
Yeah.
Because, it's he's been talking about this for years.
It's a perfect moment to address this issue because Exhibit A of why everybody has every reason to be suspicious as a general concept is the fact that Motley Crue is doing a tour after making the biggest deal. We have a contract, which doesn't mean anything. So making such a big deal. I don't have a problem. Well, at the end of the day, it's like, on one hand, people complain because it's like, hey, if I'm a Motley Crue fan and they can still play, great. They're playing more shows. Am I burned that, there's a concept, I guess, that, I shelled out tickets for the final tour thinking it was the final tour. It's like, well, did you go to the show on the final tour, the quote final tour? Did you enjoy it? Yes? Okay. So unless you like put out a second mortgage to get the tickets, which is stupid anyway, then just enjoy that there is more shows if you like Motley Crue. I mean, at the same time, I don't like the idea of saying this is it, this is it, this is it, and then it not being it, unless there's extenuating circumstances. But to your point, unless some dramatic change of events occurs in Tom Araya's life, this is it, and I'd like it to be it, because I'm sort of like, there's not going to be a better version of Slayer. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And this should be it. I mean, it'd be one thing if, Jeff was alive and they kind of, then, oh, hey, they come back great. Or they do a one-off here and there. But it's like, there's not going to be, this is it. Let's just call it a day. It's a nice going out. You can't say they're going out on top with a founder, principal songwriter dead, but they're going out as close as possible under the circumstances.
Yeah.
And Tom seems doner than done. As you pointed out, this is shouldn't be a surprise. I mean,
well, the thing is, here's another clue. I mean, at the end of every show, he has been standing on stage and saying goodbye to the crowd by the time the rest of the band's left. I mean, it's just so lazy. And the other thing as well is because Motley Crue have just come back, a lot of people are going, oh, well, just look at Motley Crue. They said they never do it again, so Slayer will. And it's like, okay, let's take that comparison to its logical conclusion. What you're saying is that Slayer is saying they're never going to tour again, and in a few years there's going to be a Netflix movie about Slayer's life that is going to be a massive hit, and because of that they are then going to be offered hundreds of millions of dollars to tour again, because you can't just say Motley Crue have done it so Slayer will. If that's your comparison, then you have to take the whole comparison.
Absolutely.
And that ain't fucking happening.
Yeah, that's not happening because Slayer's basically divulged in the course of their career very little. And I honestly think that, well, you and I might, if there was somehow a way to make a biopic of the band, you and I and DX Ferris, and we'll be interested in it because
Joel McIver, we'll get Joel involved
for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, man, the people you've mentioned there, DX Ferris, you, me, we'll get Joel McIver in. Let's just make the fucking movie and get on with it. Let's just pitch Netflix. Look, you need to make a movie about this. The only question is,
the four of us, who is going to play which Slayer member? That's the only question. Is it the four?
Well, I'll tell you who I'm playing. I'm going to play the spider who bit Jeff.
Oh, my God. Now that... Can you imagine that spider? I'm sure it's based on the natural life cycle. The spider's dead. But somewhere on this earth, in some form of decay, I don't know how fast these things decay, at what point are we down to the molecule level? The molecules that once were the spider that bit Jeff are there somewhere. Think about that.
Look, I bet that spider went back to its nest that night and went, you never guess who I just bit. And they'd be like, what?
I just killed Thrash.
It was like, I just bit Jeff Hanneman, the Slayer guitarist, and all of the other spiders going, you fucking arsehole.
Yeah.
So you better not have bitten him on the arm. His arms are really important.
Yeah. While medically, the spider was not the cause of his death.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think, though, that put him in a bad place. He wasn't doing stuff. And he drank more and did less, which equaled a unhealthy lifestyle.
Well, it was
while it wasn't medically the cause, it was the beginning of the end for Jeff. So, I mean, the spider. It all goes back to the spider. If he was not in that hot tub,
yeah. Well, I think basically Jeff was in a kind of was in a downward spiral anyway. He was clearly either borderline or functioning or just a full blown alcoholic, and this not having Slayer basically meant he had nothing to focus on. He had nothing to be fit for. He had nothing to do. So that just meant more time to drink, and it led to what it led to, unfortunately.
Yep. It's,
But also,
nothing much left to say. I mean,
But also, if you look at the last few Slayer albums, I think Jeff had pretty much, creatively had kind of checked out of Slayer as well. I mean, it was just...
Well, except for World Painted Blood, he kind of had on a way, whether he knew it or not, he went out on a pretty, I mean, at least as far as volume, and I think that was, I mean, I'm of the opinion that that's top to bottom.
Yeah.
I think it's the best album from the season. But regardless, he had more creative input on that than some of the prior ones. But
hang on, you think World Painted Blood is better than God Hates Us All?
I do.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I was going to say if we ever meet in person, we're going to have a physical altercation. But then I just remembered you said you're 6'2", so maybe we're not.
That's okay. I'll we with some booze, all bets are off.
Yeah, you're damn straight. That's really interesting because I always got the impression that Diabolus and Musica, which is very much a Jeff album, I mean, he's involved in all 13 songs. I think he's like 8 of them are like just Jeff. And when that album got kind of lukewarm and bad reviews, I kind of think that knocked him for a while because he then went really quiet on the creative front, but then sort of like you said, came back on World Painted Blood. And don't get me wrong, I think that's a really great album. Even the songs that everybody else hates, Hate Worldwide and Americon, I really love those 2 songs.
Yeah, I mean so I did when I did that, I think I did if nothing else, I plugged my own show at thrashmetalshow.com. There's a 3-part look at sort of the life of Jeff. And what I remember this sort of as it was happening, and then in retrospect, it was sort of given greater significance. But, I mean, there was a definite change in the whole sort of Slayer process, for lack of a better word, after Seasons, after Decade of Aggression. Because, between that time, Kerry shaved his head and everything changed. He became sort of he was more in the background as far as the face of the band, doing interviews and stuff prior to that, and then after that, he kind of took center stage with all that. And I think too with that album, Divine Intervention, I mean, Jeff did not have. He had one song, 213, that I think he wrote that he gets solo writing credits. He had a few songs, I think maybe a couple, and then a few songs that he had co-writing. But that was largely, musically a King album. And at that point, too, you trace it back to, I think Rob Flynn told the story. Everybody's favorite band leader right now, Rob Flynn.
Yeah.
That he told the story about how on that tour, because that was Machine Head's first tour, opening for first album. When they were opening for Slayer, the Divine Intervention tour, about Hanneman sort of had that story about Hanneman sort of like having this literally a cry in front of him about like his hand being numb, and that's when arthritis started kicking in. And so I think that is when a lot of things changed. And Divine was more of a Kerry album than as you mentioned, Diabolus was a almost exclusively Jeff album. God Hates Us All was more of a Kerry album, though the music to Disciple, the most enduring song from that album, was Jeff, and he had God Said Death and some other good stuff on there. And then Christ Illusion was more Kerry, but surprise, surprise, in my opinion anyway, the best songs were Jeff songs, like Jihad,
straight off the bat. I mean, I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
Divine Intervention for me is the low point for Slayer, closely followed by Christ Illusion. That album just, apart from Jihad, that album just does not work for me.
It's a shame too, because the sound of Christ Illusion, production, everything about it is one of the best selling albums they have.
And Dave's back on that album. Dave's back. Album.
But as you point out, not the strongest musically.
No, No, the songs were sadly lacking on that. I mean, and which is weird because like Jihad is such a good tune. It's just great. It's got everything that I love about a Jeff Slayer tune, you know. And Dave is just punking the drums up insanely, and it's a great tune. It's a fucking great tune.
Yep, and then we get Well Painted Blood, which I think Jeff had a bit of a rejuvenation. Came into that from what I remember as they were describing the process with some songs. And then, Repentless is obviously what it is. But Jeff still finding a way to have arguably one of the better songs on the album there with with Piano Wire. But
oh, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
All right, good.
So,
lost you for a minute.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's they're. As I think we started talking though, nothing should surprise any of us about a band at least doing another show again at some point. But
no,
if there's a retirement that I believe, it is Tom Araya. And as you said, every show he was just standing there looking at the crowd.
Yeah.
So thankful, just so polite, and grateful for everything.
And I mean, I don't know what it was like where you saw them, but when I saw them, which is just over a year ago when I saw them, Tom was just looking out into the crowd. He was just stood on the stage on his own. Nobody was fucking leaving. Everybody was just stood there and screaming and just kind of. I think everybody it was kind of like we were all in the same moment. He was stood there going, "This is it. This is the last time I'm going to be in London. This is the last time I'm going to play for this London crowd who I've played for God knows how many times." Yep. And those of us out there, we were feeling exactly the same. I was feeling the same. It was like, this is the last time I'm going to see this dude. I've seen Slayer more than I've seen anyone else. I think about 17 times. And to be stood there and thinking, this is the last time that I'm going to be in a room with this guy on stage, it was just like, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving until he leaves,
No, absolutely. No way. Yeah. I mean, I don't care, I don't care about traffic, getting to my car and all that stuff. No one left. Everyone was standing there. And, and I think as you pointed out, the rest of the band, first, Kerry would be the first to leave.
Yeah.
I think if I have it on good authority that when I saw them in Pennsylvania, Kerry was, by the time Tom left the stage, Kerry was already outside of Boston sound checking for the next show by the time Tom left the stage in Pennsylvania.
Well, I did notice that very last show they played, the hug between Kerry and Tom.
Yeah, the hug. Oh my God, the hug. I'm glad you brought that up because has there ever been a more forced and insincere hug than the hug, which everyone and Kerry insisted on keeping. He so didn't want to have a proper hug with his bandmate of 40 years. He kept his guitar on, if I remember correctly.
Not in the one I'm thinking of, and to be honest, and it didn't look particularly insincere. And then there's a few seconds later where they're talking to each other again, and for me it was. Was
this the very last show, or
the very very last show?
Okay.
And to me it looked sincere. To me, it did actually look like, and I think for me the reason it's sincere is that Tom did it. Because Tom and Kerry know each other very well, and they are not the best of friends.
They're not.
But there is a respect there for any long-term colleague who enables you to earn a living doing what you love. You are going to have a certain amount of respect, and I think the fact that Tom even went to hug Kerry means that he knew what he would be getting back, which would be genuine. I don't think Tom goes to hug Kerry thinking, well, this is going to be fucking awkward and in front of all these people and being Kerry, he's going to fucking back out and try and fucking swing at me. I think it really was putting a full stop at the end of the sentence. Like, dude, I'm hugging you in front of the entire auditorium. That's what a unique moment this is, because this ain't ever happening again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to watch it again, because I saw like the Holt and Tom hug, and then they kind of had a conversation after too, but I just remember Kerry walking around, and maybe it also might depend on what camera, footage we're watching. Some are better than others, obviously.
Yes, but also the other thing that is worth remembering in amongst all of this is the fact that, as I think we all know, Kerry's not very good with feelings.
No. If Kerry went, Kerry would have. I think Kerry's pulse and all of his biometrics were the exact same as mine at the show. Like, he's like, all right, I'm surprised he hasn't already officially announced the Kerry King project, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, I'm in the same groove as you. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that there is something coming.
I think DX has, I think wisely speculated that it'll be Kerry, certainly be Bostoff. Holt's a different story, because certainly he has Exodus to go back to, but there's a reason he's been working in Slayer for the last, 8 years, and that's because he was able to buy a house very early on, for the first time doing the Slayer shows. And would a project with Kerry, be more lucrative, or can he do it in conjunction with Exodus? I mean, who knows? But DX has often wondered, is it going to be Phil Anselmo, Holt, Kerry, and Bostoff with somebody on bass?
Well, yeah, it's Jason Newsted on bass. I mean, we've all speculated. I mean, Kerry is handing out 2 plectrums each night on this last tour, and on the front it says, Slayer the End, and on the back it says Reborn in 2020.
Ah, there you go.
So, because I know somebody who was given one of these picks, and they, I'm not going to say who, but they pushed, and he was just like, well, you're going to have to wait and see. So, I just think there's definitely something coming, and the thing is that,
no doubt. I mean,
but
Kerry,
again,
there's no chance he's done. Slayer wouldn't be done if it was up to Kerry. I mean,
no, there'd be more albums to come, there'd be more tours to come, and the thing is, but Kerry's always said this. He is, he's always said that. Look, when the time for, when the time does come up to hang our boots, I'll be like, okay, right, see you later, guys. See you at the bar. But he also said, when that time comes and we're not able to do it anymore, we're not capable of doing it anymore. Well, I think he's still capable of doing it. So he's like, well, I'm not hanging this up just yet.
Yep, no, absolutely. He can keep doing it. He's on top of his game. I think I remember in the late 90s, I think it was Jeff, ironically, who had said in an interview that, if referring to himself, Kerry, and Tom, if any one of them didn't want to do it anymore, that they agreed they would stop. And obviously, it wasn't exactly that Jeff didn't want to do it anymore. He was permanently unavailable to do it, so they kept it going absent him.
Well, I'm pretty much convinced that the only reason Tom agreed to do Repentless was that they would do that would be the final album, and it would be followed by the final tour, because the words coming out of the Slayer camp after Jeff died, Kerry was obviously up for it and up for cracking on, and Tom was like, look, me and Kerry need to have a conversation. The communication between the two of us hasn't been great over the last few years, and we need to sit down and really have a proper conversation about where this goes, about what we want to do. And I genuinely think that was the deal that was struck. That Tom was just like, okay, you want to do another album? Fine, we do one more album, one more tour, and I'm out. And Like I said, I've got no evidence for that. I just think that it wasn't an accident that all of a sudden there's a final tour. You know, we'll do an album, we'll tour that album, and then we'll do a final tour. Hello there.
There we are.
Yeah, well, that was really, really bizarre, right? I was rambling on about my theory of Tom saying, right, one more album, after Jeff, one more album, tour it, and then a final tour. And then there was this long gap, and I was waiting for you to respond, and then I looked at my phone and saw that the call had dropped. So
and I went on and on and on, and I think, frankly, delivered some of the best and most insightful material I ever had, and it's lost the history.
And because I was sat here waiting for that brilliant response, and nothing happened. And then, in the time it took for me to just basically set the recording up again, so it'd carry on from the right point. I got a phone call about a vital appointment that I need sorting out. And they got through to me, and I was able to I was on the phone for 30 seconds, yeah, I can do that time, brilliant, okay, great, wonderful, and then I was able to call you back. So it actually worked out really well, is what I'm saying.
It's almost like the last time we spoke on my show, where you had to go. That was the bottom line. You were in the middle of revealing then what was the secret future of Acid Rain, which we all know now what has become of that. But you had to go.
Yes.
And it was over.
Yes.
And as I told people, when H has to go, he's got to go. There's no...
Yeah.
He's a busy man.
That did make me laugh, actually, that episode. Where it's just that's it. He's gone. He's out of here. But one thing I've noticed about your show, so sorry, we're kind of going over to your show. We've spoken about Slayer so much. Obviously, I've noticed just recently that there's been a lot of kind of old episodes sort of either being rebroadcast or reissued, or episodes that have only been available on Patreon are coming out. It's and I it wasn't easy being able to find the time to do this. Are you struggling to get episodes out at the moment?
Yeah, it's just I've got some and I keep it offline, but you kind of know the deal. I think I have some new obligations, and which puts the recording of shows lower on the list. But I get them in when I can, and I think I'm going to have some time in the future to increase the frequency, I hope. And but one of the things too is I didn't even realize was that. So Carl Stern of WhenItWasCool.com, he, runs the whole thing. I just sent him the show, and he puts it up there. And many of the early episodes actually were never on, the Apple Podcast, the Stitcher, all those things. So he's been re-releasing them either unedited or in sort of a combined package form, which is good because some people, they still just don't want to dial in thrashmetalshow.com and find all the shows. They just want to sit back and have their iTunes feed, whatever it is, inform them. So that is, sort of holding down the fort until I can get some new material in the mix.
Yeah. So he's just kind of, it's just a holding place, really.
Yeah, and it's actually, I was really surprised, too, about what I think is, frankly, some of the best stuff was never actually on the iTunes feed or any of those feeds. So, we're talking, the deep dives into, early Megadeth, Slayer, and Metallica, through Rain and Blood, Peace Cells, and, Master of Puppets. I mean, a lot of those, and that's certainly some of the deepest stuff, as far as most in-depth stuff I've done. And a lot of that wasn't even on the feed, so it's good that it gets out there.
Yeah, I think it's great when you've got somebody who can do that for you as well. Who's basically kind of looking after your audience while you're busy having to look after life. Yep.
So. Yeah, but I hope to be able to get back on the horse and do some shows with greater frequency. So,
I look forward to it. I really, really do. Because funnily enough, I was listening to the Exodus special, and do you know what I think? With some of these re-releases, it's meant I've just ended up listening to them again because I've already listened to them. And I love the Megadeth ones because because basically a history of Megadeth is basically like a history of heroin throughout the ages.
Oh my God! It's Dave and heroin. Because I just remember one of the things that struck me as I was reading both Dave and Dave's memoirs was how Megadeth, as a fan with at the time, grew up like, oh, okay, this is the original lineup. Like it was as if it was just this was the lineup for the first two albums. These two guys, always appreciating that it was Dave's band. But then, all right, then there was sort of the oddball scenario with So Far So Good, So What for once, and then they had the I guess the most enduring lineup. The Rust in Peace lineup, but to even call while on as far as having the same personnel on the first two albums on that surface level looks like a stable lineup. It was anything but. I mean, it was those guys. First off, Chris Poland and Gar only joined Megadeth very soon before the recording of that first album. So it wasn't like they were really a tight unit going into that album. Immediately, Chris Poland doesn't go on the tour for Killing Is My Business due to disputes over, I think, like T-shirt royalties. And I forget the guy who played guitar on that first tour. And then, they barely hold it together to record Peace Sells. And by the end of that tour, Chris and Gar are gone. I mean, it was like, it's really a blur. To even call that a lineup of any, is almost stretching the definition. I mean, just how unstable it was. The lineup was Dave, heroin, and heroin.
Yes, very much so. Although Gar got him into it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Gar, man. I mean, that's an unfortunate, story. 'Cause, I mean, he really, when you look at the drummers of the early thrash bands, I mean, he was from a totally different genre, him and Chris, but just jazz fusion. I mean, he was just a different kind of guy that brought something to the table that no one else in the genre was really bringing at that point.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like, I don't know, the whole Megadeth thing was just, it's a miracle they ever actually put out more than one album.
Yeah, the fact that Dave's alive, or that Chris is alive, it's all miracles.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, wow. That is just, it's a conundrum, isn't it? That they just managed to keep stumbling along, and that there was no management taking them in hand and trying to get them clean. It was just everybody constantly trying to get them into the studio, make another album, right, and just push them out on tour, and everybody just wanted to wants to keep the money boat afloat rather than
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it's sort of like a lot of these stories you hear about stars of any genre or even different art forms that are just the gravy train. You think of Michael Jackson and just he had, setting aside all of his other issues, if nothing else, in prepping for that final, or what was to be that big series of shows in London, I mean, he had no business prepping for those shows. I mean, he was like, my height at 100 pounds, which is like essentially Karen Carpenter level of skinny. And I mean, he's being, kind of just put out there because, that was going to be a massive cash cow. But, so on a lesser level, I mean, I think the people around Dave appreciated him. This guy is special. He's got some serious problems, but he's special. We got to keep him going. And, but yeah, there was no thought. It really, you don't read in those early, at least in those early days, any sort of strong-handed management saying, hey, let's get you guys fixed up here, and then we can do an album.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like you say, it's the ancient story of the music business, isn't it? It's like, let's just keep everybody going, keep them working, you know, and it doesn't matter about the quality of the product or anything else. Just get product out there so we can get these people on the road.
Yeah.
And it's the time honored traditions of the music business. It's pretty fucked, but it's exactly what, you know, it's exactly what happens when you are that big, you know, when you are essentially a business and you've got people that are relying on you for their income, then there's always going to be people around you who are willing to sacrifice your health for their wealth.
When you're that big, and there's at least a singular talent involved that's like required for it. You know, that combination in particular, I think, just keeps someone, all right, let's just keep Dave doing albums. I mean, obviously, you know, not to diminish Dave Ellison's contributions, but I mean, it's Dave Mustaine's, you know, the band, you know, I mean, and as far as, you know, what kept it going and what was the central focus. And you get people, it's almost becomes the reverse. It doesn't become let's get him help. It's like, let's get him drugs so he'll get through this next show.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, it's just kind of weird that well, I don't know, just like that. It's not often that you hear like it's the whole band, you know, it's like usually it's somebody going off the rails, but it's the whole fucking band.
It is the entire band. I mean, you know, that's the thing. There was no individual person who was in any sense of the word sober in that band. I mean, everyone was doing everything, and it's a miracle that that no one in that time period even died. I mean, Gar died, but that was years later. I mean, that incredible.
Yeah, and I'm just. Yeah, it is a weird one. It is, and especially when you see, like, you know, Dave, who's always comes across as so headstrong and the leader and all this, and that, you know, basically all he needed to be told by Gar was, look, you know, if you want to be a really good musician, all the best musicians do heroin. Oh, right, okay, I'll do that then.
I know. That is wild.
Because this is a guy who just seemed to, like, you know, didn't give a shit about anyone's opinion, and, you know, has always been, you know, marched to the beat of his own drum. But when it came to that, he was more than willing to like, indulge immediately, which, I don't know, it just doesn't kind of, mind you, I suppose he was drinking a lot as well, so...
Of all the things to take advice on, that's the thing you chose to. I mean, I always, you know, thought of, you know, heroin as kind of like the final frontier. All right, you're doing it. You're not. That's some serious stuff. I mean, you hear about people, you know, sort of dabbling in coke at parties and this and that, but you don't hear too much. Yeah, I'm just dabbling in heroin. I mean, that seems to be difficult to merely dabble in, and so doing that, man. I mean, get that. That's I mean, just deciding. Okay, Gar, you say so. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I'm just amazed that they. I'm amazed that they survived they've survived as long as they have. And the two the two brothers, the two Daves, are, you know, just they're thick as thieves, you know. But they're back together. I think that's one of the most amazing things, you know, is that it's almost as amazing as Dave being apart from Slayer as those two being back together.
Yeah. I mean, that was, you know, I think actually. Doesn't Dave Ellison, he has released a second sort of a sequel memoir, and I think he talks about that a little bit more in depth. But yeah, no, I mean, that stretch of it was about 8 years, right? From 2002, I think, 2010, that they were, you know, apart. And it's appropriate that they're back. I mean, really, it's obviously Dave Mustaine's the band, but the band is more since there's no sort of enduring steady lineup, I mean, the closest thing to it is having at least the 2 Daves involved. The band is at its best when the 2 Daves are involved.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's just one of those things. They are, Dave. Obviously Mustaine, he is Megadeth, but it's just a lot better when Elefson's around.
Yeah, at a certain point too. I mean, it might. I'm sure, while he has contributions that, while they don't necessarily wind up being formal songwriting credits, they are, the types of things that can make, good songs, great songs,
Yeah, without a doubt. They're just, it's just, they're Lennon McCartney of thrash. Or that's probably James and Lars, but, it's certainly when it comes to Megadeth, it's down to those two. And it's interesting that that Dirk, the new drummer, is kind of like probably more like Gar than any drummer they've had since. I'll be very interested to see how it comes together.
Name, Dirk is sort of has the most resemblance in a sense to Gar. There's a similar quality to the two names, but Dave has said that he's the most like Gar, and just that. I mean, I wasn't familiar with Dirk before he joined Megadeth, but I mean, you get the endorsement from Chris Adler that he's one of the 3 best drummers in metal. I mean, that's saying something. He's he's got that. There's a fluidity and a little bit of swing that was a hallmark of Gar in his playing. Without
a doubt, man. Without a doubt. Well, look, it's been awesome catching up with you again. You know how when you interviewed me and I was like, oh, I gotta go, and I've unfortunately I've got some stuff that's just come in that is going to require my immediate attention.
No, it's not unfortunate. It is a requirement. In fact, if the day ever comes that we talk, whether on your show or my show, and it doesn't end with you having to go, well, I'll come up with a reason why you got to go, buddy. I'll figure it out. That is the way it should be.
Oh, awesome! Look, I really appreciate you taking the time out, because I know, you have got a million and one things at the moment going on. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, and
no problem.
And season's greetings to you and the family, man.
Absolute season's beatings.
Season's beatings. On that note, I shall leave you on that note. Nice one, man. Take care.
Adios.
See ya. And there's myself and the one and only No Friender catching up a few weeks ago. Top man, really, really good guy to talk to, and really feel like we've bonded over our many interviews that we've done, and the fact that I can just run off like halfway through, and he's like, "Yeah, no problem, totally expected that, saw that coming." That was really, really cool. Really cool. Now, I did say that I was going to do no Friender, then Godless, then Dan, but I'm gonna put Dan into the podcast now. And here he comes. This is a catch up with friend of the show, he's current Reanimated guitarist, current 13 guitarist, survivor of Hodgkin's lymphoma twice before he was even 30. What the fuck? Some of you will already know Dan. He was on the podcast when he was going through his chemo and everything, and he was on the podcast every month, keeping everybody up to date with what he was going through. He was at the Acid Rain show in Scarborough, and I just suddenly thought, hey, wouldn't it be great to get Dan back on the show, and so everybody could find out how he's doing. So that's what I did, and here it is. This is the wonderful Dan the Cancer Man. Dan no longer the Cancer Man, because he survived. This is us having a chat just the other day. What a fucking idiot, eh? Here we go. proper phone call coming up.
Hello.
That's more like it, isn't it?
That's more like it. Miles better.
Got your dulcet tones coming through loud and clear.
That's more like it.
So,
Good.
Yeah, saw you not so long ago. You never mentioned you were coming to the whole show, mate.
Yeah, I thought I'd surprise you, didn't I?
Sorry, not the whole show, the Scarborough show. Yeah, it was a surprise, mate. Because getting to Scarborough is not the easiest thing for anyone.
No, I didn't. We was on the way there, and we didn't actually. It's one of those things. I didn't realise it was actually this far away. I thought it was one of those ones that was only like 40 minutes up the road or something, but it's actually not.
Yeah, it's like it's a one-horse town, isn't it? And it's like one road in, one road out.
Yeah.
I mean, so I know loads of people in Yorkshire, obviously having been brought up there, and they were all like, on a Thursday night, Scarborough and back, forget it. It's it's impossible to get to. My mum looked into coming to it, getting the coach over, and that's like Harrogate. It's what, like 60 miles away, 5 hours by coach.
Jesus,
I know.
Really?
Yeah,
that's a hike, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was. We thought we'd be home by midnight, and we didn't leave. Obviously, didn't leave the venue while 12:30, and I didn't get home till 2 o'clock in the morning. I had to be up for work the next day, but so I was absolutely exhausted.
Well, look, I've got to. I think I kind of owe you an apology, actually, because I think. I kind of. I'm sure I did say Reanimator guitarist, but for some reason I felt the need to throw in there that you'd beaten cancer twice, like that. Like that sort of defines you as a person. So my apologies.
Weirdly enough, you're not the only person that's ever done that. Just to introduce her, this is Dan, and he's beat cancer twice. Yeah, you're not the only person that's done it.
Well, that's a relief, but only from the point of view that basically I'm not the only cunt, but I'm still a cunt.
I was going to say there are people who are as much of a cunt as you.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, to be fair, up until now, I'm sure that was a mystery to everybody, including anyone. All the listeners are thinking, surely not. Surely there's not a bigger cunt than Howard. Well, apparently.
No, as it turns out, yeah.
Yeah, fucking hell. Well, anyway, look, thanks for coming, mate. That was
no worries. It was a great gig.
Oh, thanks, dude. It was just a great surprise,
Yeah.
Like I said, there was a few people who turned up that I just totally wasn't expecting. And it was it was awesome, man. And like I said, we had like UK thrash legends littered all over the place. Mike from Reanimator, you from Reanimator, Mac, formerly of Acid Rain, Phil from Holosade. But the funny thing is, people later said to me, was that a dig at like Diamond Head? Because I kind of, at the end, I went like, is there anyone else? And everyone was like, no.
No.
And they thought I was having a pop at Diamond Head, but,
Right.
There you go. Oh, shit, I forgot to say as well, this all ties in, the promoter came up to our dressing room after we'd come off, about 10 minutes we'd come off, and he came in and he went, wow, there's loads of famous people here. I was like, yeah, it's like, it's awesome. And he went, and the next thing he said, who's here from Cancer? I fucking love Cancer.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I was like, no, there's no one from Cancer.
That's great.
It's like, I was like, no, and obviously explained, and he was like, oh, no, I feel like such a cunt.
Yeah, it's a good job he didn't say it to me.
yeah, exactly.
From?
yeah. Is that the first time you've met Mike from Reanimator?
No, I've met him because I knew Reanimator for a couple of years before Mike quit. We gigged with him and everything. That's how we met him. Was we were supporting an Iron Maiden tribute band from Hull, and so I think I told you before. In fact, it was quite funny because they were supposed to have a different band on, and so the bassist from this Iron Maiden tribute band rang up, and he said, "Oh, it's." And by this point, I'd heard of Reanimator, but I didn't really get the sort of history of them. I'd heard that there was some kind of big band from somewhere, but I didn't. I just assumed there was still like a active touring band sort of thing. And nobody really explained the history of them and anything to me. So so Jamie rang me and he goes, "Oh, my mate's band's dropped out of support." So I was like, "All right, yeah." He goes, "But we've got Reanimator on the bill." I just went, "Cool." And he goes, Yeah. So anyway, it'll be a real good night. He goes, "But we've got Reanimator on the bill." And I went, "Cool." Like you repeated it like 3 times. I don't get what it means. So yeah, it was quite funny. And then so we met and we got talking. It was Kev who sort of really who I really sort of clicked with, and he came on to my house a couple of times and went out for drinks and stuff. And he was like, "Oh, I'll take some of your CDs and I'll pass them on to some people. I don't know, see if it helps you out a bit and all this stuff." And then it was, so a couple of years later, then, or maybe a year later or something, Kev rang me and said, "Oh, Mike's quit. Do you fancy the gig?" So, yeah, I'd already met Mike a couple of times anyway. I always got on with him. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody who hasn't got on with Mike. He's such an easygoing chap.
He is, isn't he? He's funny as well.
Oh, he's a fucking total laugh. And the thing is, it's like, nights like that is such a pain because I wish I could spend more time with you, and I wish I could have spent more time with Mike. But Mac being there, who I was in a band with for so many years and shared so many memories, it's just like everybody else kind of goes by the wayside. You know what I mean?
I get that, yeah.
Because it's like, you know, I mean, funnily enough, during the song "The Fear," when I was out and about in the crowd, he was at the front. He was at the barrier. So I came up behind him. I put my arm around him and was like headbanging with him. And he's like turned around and he's like, "Fucking up!" And he was shouting in my ear, going, "Did we ever play this live?" I was like, "Yes, we fucking did." He goes, "I can't remember."
Yeah. Oh no, that's really cool. I bet there was a real good sort of bit of nostalgia for you both and everything, though.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he came to see us 2 years ago when we played Newcastle, and he got up and did a song with us. And funnily enough, during Motherly Love, Pete, our bass player, Matt was still at the barrier, so Pete went down right up next to the barrier and put like the neck of his guitar over the barrier. So Pete was playing, you know, Pete was strumming it, and Matt was playing the neck.
Ah, nice.
I know, it was a nice little bass duet going on.
Yeah.
That was really fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
It was just...
And it's cool that everyone sort of gets on with each other as well, because you don't know if there's ever going to be some kind of like, "Oh, you replaced me" in the band sort of thing. You know what I mean? So it's cool that everyone is just on a cool level with everyone. There's no like bad feelings or anything.
No, I mean, not as far as I'm aware. I mean, Ramsey and Adam, who were both going to be involved in the reformation, but didn't make it in the end. They've done a band called Workshed, and they've just recorded an album. They've put an album out as well. It came out the week before ours, funnily enough.
Right. Yeah.
The reformation kind of got them reunited, as it were. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, and they both realised that they weren't going to be able to commit to Acid Rain, but they've dipped in and dipped out and put this this band of their own together and just done their own thing, which is really, really cool. And I urge people to check it out as well, because it's fucking cool. Ian, the original bass player, fucking hell, he was messaging me through the Acid Rain page. He bought a copy of the new album and he absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
I've heard through friends that Kev likes it as well, but I haven't had a chance to catch up with Kev for a long time. And Gaz, I haven't spoken to Gaz since he left Acid Rain in 1989. And I sort of put an olive branch out a couple of times, but no dice. So I haven't got a clue what he thinks, but there you go. Such is life. So I think it's all fairly fairly amicable.
Good.
Speaking of which, what's going on with 13 and Reanimator, mate?
Well, with Reanimator, we're pretty much on. What do they call it? It's indefinite hiatus, isn't it? we haven't put. Fucking, I hate all that shit. Due to unforeseen circumstances, fuck off. Just be honest. So we haven't put a statement out or all like that. I don't think we required a pretense of a fucking statement as such. But I suppose at the same time we've had a couple of people messages going, "What are you up to? Are you gigging anytime soon?" But so what's happening is obviously John left the band. When was that? It was sometime last year, wasn't it? So it was just after we recorded the EP, and John was just kind of like, right, I've done my bit with it now. I'm happy to put this to bed, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, Kev's had a lot of. He was because he's a builder. He's spent the last year and a half building an extension on his house by hand by himself. So I know what will help me relax after work is as a builder, he's doing more building. So he's spent the last year and a half building this extension. So he didn't really have time to commit to any band stuff. And then I started a new job, and I met someone and sort of moved in with her, and I was just like, I'm happy just doing one band instead of chasing two about that other people are not like currently sort of invested in. So I think we all just kind of, without sitting down and going, we're done, that was kind of just how it went naturally, sort of thing. I suppose the timing of it was just a bit thingy because we just released the EP and there was a load of buzz about it, and this is, we want to see this live and all this stuff, but we just kind of like, you know what, we've put the EP out, we played a couple of really good gigs, and that's kind of it, really. Yeah. I mean, I think Kev said as well, because like obviously you guys back in the day and everything, you did all the clubs and everything, you did all the sort of grassroots stuff, and they were really mostly the gigs that we were getting offered in Reanimator, and Kev's like, I've done all that, I'm not interested in starting from scratch. If we get offered a festival type thing again, then maybe we'll think about it, but until we get offered something like that, then I've done it all, I don't need to do it again. So I get that. So yeah, that's kind of where Reanimator's at, really. At some point, we would like to get some physical copies of the CDs done. We message each other every so often because Ked's thinking about getting some merch done and stuff. But as far as gigging goes and everything, that's been put to rest for the foreseeable, I think. Yeah, and with 13, we dip in and out, sort of. We're not as active as we was 10 years ago, sort of thing, like when we was kids and everything, because the other two lads have got 3 kids between them. They're like settled down, married and all this stuff, and as I say, I met someone, I moved in with her last year, so we was a bit more active towards the second half of the year, and we're looking a bit, our diary's more full next year than it has been this entire year already, so we're already writing again, so yeah, that's kind of where we're at music-wise.
Cool, man. So, I mean, did you do much for the last album? Did you do, was there much follow up on that?
For the Reanimator one?
No, 13.
Oh, for the 13 one, yeah. I mean, we
XIII.
Yeah, and what was the other one we had? Z. And extra large.
Yeah, that's got to be my favourite. Extra large. That's brilliant. We got asked for a lot of those shirts on tour, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, well, our fan base is mainly fat bastards.
Yeah, when I get that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's always been the thing. Like most of our sets been like songs from that album, and we take a bag full, like a rucksack full of them to every gig, and we do and sell them out of that. And I mean, in terms of like, I don't know, getting it out to people, like if you're not sort of, it kind of seems like when you're trying to promote a CD and stuff, unless you've got a foot in the door with those types of people who'd be interested in promoting it, then it's all about who you know, innit? And we don't really know people, so I don't think we're a particularly sociable band.
Well, it's hard without a label. I mean, one thing I thought about when we were putting a new album out is like, there's no way that I'm going to self-release this. And then people talk about crowdfunding, and basically that's self-releasing. The hardest, crowdfunding, all that does is give you the finance, not to decry it, but you've still got to set a record label up, fill your fucking house full of CDs and vinyl, and physically post all that shit out. Or get other people to do it, and those people need paying, and you've still got to create a company, and it's like, well, fuck all that. So hence, find a record label, sign to them, and let them do it. And I mean, that's why I've gone down that route because it's just like you say, unless you know people, the only other thing you can do is hire a PR. And I mean, you could have got some press off the back of having, you know, been your stuff you've done with Reanimator. But you know, whether that's going to, you know, shift enough copies to actually pay you the money back that you paid to the PR is another matter.
Well, that's the thing, and they can be like an expensive deal themselves as well, can't they? We got approached by one a while back who was like wanting to charge us thousands and stuff, and I was like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, and as I say, the other two lads have got kids and everything now and stuff, and mortgages and all this, so it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that I guess unless you end up breaking through it and you end up being able to make something of a stable, not necessarily a career as such, but as like, you know, it becomes like a regular sort of figment. Like eventually you start going, right, what do I need to do to make sure I put food on the fucking table for my family? And if your band's not paying, the thing that is ends up going to taking precedent in it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And how are things health-wise? Because obviously, I hadn't seen you for a while, and then when we bumped into each other, and I, you know, I had the amazing idea of getting you on for a catch-up for the end of this year. And and what's the last thing I said to you? I was like, you said message me. I said, look, you message me because I'll forget because I'm on tour. And the other day, I suddenly thought, the fucker's not messaged me.
Well, that's why, because you said. You said, I'll message you, and if you don't message me, if I don't message you, you message me. So, stupidly, I was waiting for you to message me still. I was just waiting until the last minute. And then you rang me this evening, and I went, shit, I forgot about that. I literally just walked through the door.
Oh, for fuck's sake. It was only 24 hours ago, mate. Your memory's as bad as mine.
Yeah, it really is. I have an appalling memory, I won't lie.
Having said that, well, it's all those wonderful NHS drugs you've been shoving in yourself.
Yeah, it more than likely is. More than likely. But yeah, health-wise, I'm doing all right. I think I'm doing all right. My hand's never quite recovered, because the nerve damage and stuff like that. So like. Especially, we got a new drummer a couple of years ago, and he lost a load of weight after he joined us, and that seems to have made him play 10 times faster. I'm like, fucking 5 years ago, I'd have been able to keep up with this, but I just can't. So we're having to say to it, slow it down a bit. But which is a bit shit, because I don't like that. I like the competitiveness of going, right, you're playing this fast, I'll play faster and all this stuff. But so yeah, my hands are not. I'm not quite as good a guitar player as I used to be, and then with us just not practicing as much as we used to and everything. So that's a bit disappointing, but other than that, it's all right. And health-wise, I exercise and everything as much as I can, but so I'm doing all right, really. There's, everyone keeps going, you know, you have been through that and everything, so you do need to be careful. Just be mindful of the fact that you're never going to be quite 100%. I don't mean to say I can't stop fucking trying, though, does it? So
no, but I mean, you know, it's a lot to go through at such a young age, darling. You know, I mean, it's, you know, you've had a lifetime full of cancer, and you know, well, you're not 30 yet, are you?
Yeah, well, I'm 31 now.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah, well, congratulations! I didn't realise you'd made it into your 30s.
Yeah, at one point you're like, am I even going to get that far?
Exactly.
Yeah. But 31 now, so I think in May I'll be 3 years in remission, if you can believe it's already been that long.
Wow, has it been that long since we were doing... Is that long since we were doing the regular updates?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I really... Hence, I still thought you were in your 20s.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Right. But then again, I suppose coming up in January, it's going to be 5 years since I've been doing the podcast, which is just insane. But, But, wow. Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. Well, I suppose, it was, 2017 when you were touring with Reanimator, about this time of year, actually. We'd just done it all, hadn't we?
Yeah, because I'm getting all the memory things from Facebook about all the photos I was posting and everything. But yeah, it's weird to think that was already 2 years ago or something. It's just bonkers. Yeah,
I'm getting all the reminders of strange Chinese drinks with dead lizards in them.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah. Yeah, I liked that stuff actually. Considering.
Yeah, me too. It was kind of weird. I do think that. I don't know. I suspect that might have been a rubber. A rubber creature in there, but it probably wasn't. Given it was from China, it probably was genuinely some petrified newt or something.
More than likely. I think it'd actually be a bit disappointing if it was just a toy.
Oh, absolutely. It wouldn't be as a heavy metal story anymore. It'd just be stupid. No. So you were talking about that. You know, the nerve damage to your hands and not being as good a guitarist, which I have to say is admirable. That is something that you're willing to just kind of put out there. It must be. I mean, is that frustrating in a way? Have you found yourself picking up your guitar less?
Not because of that. It's one of those things. You know, like it kind of feels like you peaked a couple of years ago, and you're like, oh shit, I wish I'd kind of appreciated where I was at the time. Sort of thing, which I guess is something that everyone does with a lot of fucking things in it. So, but you kind of, you just have that feeling that you've kind of passed your prime a little bit.
No, not at all. No, still
you're not there yet. Then.
Still got my pride to come, darling.
Well, that's how I feel anyway. So fuck you.
Oh, you've no idea how much the listeners enjoyed that.
Good. So yeah, I think there's a bit of frustration, especially as I say, like the idea that I'm having to tell my drummer to slow the songs down a little bit. It's a little bit like, oh fuck, you swallow in your pride a little bit, going, I'm really sorry, Tom, because I should be able to keep up with this, but can you slow down a bit? Because my hands are cramping up.
And you kind of feel like, wow, if there was another guitarist in this band and they were saying that 2 years ago, I'd be like, this guy's got to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd be like, well, you can't keep up, then you need to fucking find somewhere else that's, going to play a bit softer for you. But, so that's a bit shit. But yeah, I mean, I still play at home and everything. I've got a couple of guitars in the living room that I moved into and everything. So like, I still I can write a riff every day, like every day sort of thing. I can just come out with riffs and stuff, and so the creativity's there. It's just my hands just can't quite keep up as they used to.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a frustration.
Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, and especially I used to fucking sit down, and I remember especially when I was learning how to play guitar and everything, and you're going, right, I'm going to learn Master of Puppets all down picks like James Hetfield does it, and you get to that point, and then you go, right, I'm going to sit and crack on with that again, and you go, fuck, I'm halfway through it, and I'm already, I already can't do it. Right. So yeah, it is a bit frustrating. Like if you used to be able to run a marathon or something, and then all of a sudden you're getting tired out after a mile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think anybody listening to this who's had a period of being fit, and then for whatever reason, not being able to go to the gym or get fit or anything, and then you go back to the gym, and it's just depressing because it's you realise straight away how far you've fallen off and how much work there is in front of you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It seems to take you so long to get to a point, but then you kind of lose it in a tenth of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I even with the gym stuff, like when I worked in the prison and everything, I was doing, like, I used the prison gym every day I was at work, and so I was getting to the point I was doing like 80 pull-ups a day, 80 dips, 200 push-ups, 200 squats, and I'd do that 5 days a week. Like, go back after that and you're going, right, I'm going to crack out 10 pull-ups, and it's just not happening, sort of thing. So, it's a bit shit. It's just one of those things like, fuck, I've got to get back on the wagon again. So,
yeah. And work-wise, what are you up to?
So
are you back in prison?
No, I'm not back in prison. Right. I'm still. I suppose I have to be. I do have to. One of the reasons I ended up changing my name on social media and everything is because I ended up doing, and went to another job in 2017. So it'll have been just before we did that tour. I guess it was November 2017. I started. So. Yeah, we did the tour in 2017, didn't we? Yeah. Yeah, so just before the tour, I went to another job. I have to be careful about, I won't announce what it is.
Oh, yeah.
But it's kind of more, more involved, shall we say?
Yeah,
So,
no, I think I remember. We had a chat about this on the when we were on the road actually, and it was like you know you were just like, well, yeah, it's all a bit hush hush.
Yeah, it's stressful, but I do enjoy it. It's one of those things, but it's not just like, it's not one of those jobs where you can just go, right, I'm turning my computer off at the end of the day and I'm done. It's like, it becomes a bit, you end up sort of living it a bit more and everything and stuff. And I think that's another reason the sort of bands have quietened down a little bit, because it's like, yeah, you're just more involved in this job. Like, you just sort of part of your fucking person ends up being not dragged into it as such, because obviously you go into it willingly, and I do enjoy it, but there's part of it where you don't just, there's a level where you can't just switch off from it. It's not one of those jobs where you just go home and forget about it.
Yeah,
but I do enjoy it.
Well, I was going to say, by the sounds of it, it's that kind of job. Invariably, you end up sort of buying into it to that extent because it's rewarding and because it's like it's more than a job. It's like you say, you don't just switch your computer off and go home. It's clearly more than a job, and that means that there's more reward.
Absolutely, yeah. There's more like sort of risk involved as well, and there's times where you just like, you get home and you're like, I'm absolutely drained. I can't fucking function. But you still, there's something about it. There's still, you get up the next day and you still go back and do it again. But yeah, so yeah, it is rewarding. It's something you can, I think I can build a career out of. So.
Well, it's like anything else, mate. Higher the risk, higher the reward.
Absolutely, definitely.
And the thing is, as well, is that if you are, being a creative type of person, and those alleyways kind of being a little bit blocked off, it's great that there's something else that you can. It sounds so wank, but it's great that you can have something that nourishes that part of you.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, because I think there's still part of me has that thing when I was like 15 years old, going, right, I want to be touring, and I want to have a fancy fucking tour bus, and you know what I mean, I want to be chucking TVs out of hotel windows and stuff like that. But you know what I mean, there's still part of me that's still there a little bit. But so having to kind of go, right, there's a good chance we're probably not going to get much further than where we are now, sort of thing. And that took a bit of a sort of getting my head round and kind of accepting it for what it is, sort of thing, instead of trying to get something a bit more out of it. And then having found this kind of felt like a bit of a like, you know what, that didn't quite work out how I wanted it to when I was 15, but I found this job, which I'd never thought I'd even have the bollocks to do when I was 15. So that's, there's a bit of this, it makes up for it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, by the sounds of it. I mean, look, take it from me, I've never ever in my life had a job that's been anything like as rewarding as that is, by the sounds of it. And I bet there's a lot of people who are listening who are in jobs that are completely, that are not rewarding at all and are purely a financial arrangement. So, I guess it's really, the fact that you recognise that and potentially you have a career and it's something that is rewarding and that you enjoy doing, then, that's a big thing in life.
Yeah, and sometimes, it's one of those things where you sit down and go, you know what, most people, there's a lot of people, like you say, don't get this opportunity to, like, be, because you spend, like, people go, oh, well, you're only working like 37 hours a week or something, but if you take into account that that's a big chunk of your fucking day, and then you get home and you sit around for, like, 5 hours, and then you got to sleep for 8 hours or something, if you get a good night's sleep, if that. And so, you're spending a lot of time at this place of your work, whatever. So to hate it, like, which I recognise a lot of people do. Oh yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? So it's to be in the position where you're like, you know what, I'm actually getting something out of this for myself. It's a lucky thing, really, because as I say, I'm quite aware of the fact that a lot of people don't get to that point.
That's awesome, Matt, and that's a really cool, uplifting point to finish on. But we're not going to finish totally because I've got some questions from patrons for you.
Okay.
All right, but for now, thank you very much.
No worries. Cheers, dude.
And that genuinely would have been it if we hadn't then gone on to do so much for Patreon. I think I ended up recording as much again due to the insightful nature of the questioning of patrons. So it actually turned out to be so good, I'm going to now put it into the podcast. So good. Well, it's just that whilst doing it, and I even say this to Dan during the interview, it's like, right now, this needs to go in the main podcast because there's a lot of stuff about dealing with cancer in this. And I know for a fact that, well, you know, it's just life, isn't it? That, you know, people out there listening to this will know somebody or are themselves going through something at the moment to do with cancer. It's a fucking pain. So due to the nature of this next section being all about how he battled it and how he overcame it, it's really inspiring stuff. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did doing it, because the man is an inspiration, just as simple as that. So let's just pick up where we left on, and here comes the next part of the interview with Dan. So we're back recording.
Yep.
And we are now going to go straight in to questions from patrons, which were still coming in whilst we were having that conversation.
Really?
Yeah. So mainly, well, actually, yeah, from Robbie Maguire and Carl, who, right. But there's quite some in-depth questions. So, I'll just put my old man glasses on. Here we go.
Are they the ones that you wear on stage for Keith?
No, they're fucking not, you cheeky cunt. Or you just wait till Keith comes to Hull. It will happen one day.
Yeah.
So, this is from Robbie Maguire. Dan's cancer battle updates on the podcast were always interesting and inspiring. What was it that kept him seemingly so positive and focused?
Oh, dear. God, that's it. When I think back, I mean, there was quite a load of different things that I was kind of doing. Oh God, it's weird to sort of try and put yourself back into that. Like, you know, after like, I would say it 2.5 years ago. So, yeah. I mean, I still remember. It's one of the things that I always tell people is when I first got told, you know, it's cancer. I remember leaving the hospital. And there was part of, you know, where you feel like you've just been punched in the stomach. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ. But I remember, like, I got home, and, like, my family were just like, what the fuck? And I just went, I'm fucking fighting it. And then I was like, oh, hang on a minute. It caught me. I caught myself off guard a little bit.
Right.
So there was just that idea of, like, fuck you. There's no way I'm fucking... How old was I at the time? I was 26. I was like, I've got way too much shit to do here. So there was just that general... I ain't fucking going down without, I ain't going down without fucking fighting it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
There was just that initial, right, let's lace the gloves up, sort of thing.
Yeah. So
there was that, and then as it sort of went on, I mean, I had real good sort of support around me in terms of, like, as I say, I worked at the prison at the time, and the staff there were just like, I couldn't have chosen a better group of people to be around, and then my own mates and everything, the lads in the band and everything. Yeah. I think that was quite. I was quite lucky that the planets kind of aligned a little bit there as well, in terms of who I was around at the time and everything, and family and everything. So there was that too, and then as it kind of went on, even more, like, once the initial, right, let's fucking go for it, I'm having this. Once that kind of, you get over that, then you start thinking, right, I need to think of other things to sort of keep me going, sort of thing. So I ended up watching a load of podcasts and stuff about resilience and stuff like that. And it sounds a bit wanky and stuff, but again, going back to the job that I'm doing now, we're kind of involved with psychology quite a lot and all this stuff. So there's like there's this guy who I was like watching a lot of his videos up, and I was like, oh shit, right, that's really interesting. So, like, for example, he's talked about one of the best ways to sort of get through difficult times and stuff like that when you have a period of, like, depression or mental health issues and stuff like that. And then that's still quite relevant for if you're going through physical health issues, I think. And I remember him saying, you have to narrow your field of vision, sort of thing. So So say, for example, normal working week, you're going, right, I've got to get this done by this week, I've got that done, I've got a deadline of about a month for that, I've got 3 weeks for that. Narrow your field of vision, so you're going, this is what I need to get done today, this is what I need to get done within the hour, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you're not taking too much shit on, sort of thing. Like, you put your blinkers on a little bit.
I totally agree. And, in life, that's always...
Yeah.
Someone said to me, like, oh, what's the plan now you've done the first part of the tour? It's well, part 2. It's like, no, but the big plan. It's like, no, there is no big plan. That is the plan. Yeah.
And especially because, like, touring's such a grueling thing as well, isn't it? Like people I think people have the impression that you go on stage and you play and then you're going to be fucking partying and then you're going to be in a fancy fucking hotel. And especially, like, unless you're one of the really top flight bands, it's not like that. You're going to be travelling fucking hours in some little shitty van. You might end up sleeping in that little shitty van with no heating or whatever. You might be staying in a fucking travel lodge at the most or something. And gigging is actually, I find personally, fucking exhausting. Do a half an hour set or something of really fucking laying it all out on stage. I'd get off stage and I'm like, right, I need to sleep for 20 hours now.
Well, we were doing an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And we did that. And from leaving London to get to Scarborough to arriving at Dublin, we did 11 hours of travelling.
Right.
That was 6 hours driving to Scarborough. Then it was 5 hours to drive from Scarborough to the ferry, and then from the ferry to Dublin. And it was dead funny as well because, like, we were staying at Joe from Gamma Bombs, and he was like, "Oh, I've got Sunday. There's loads of stuff we can do. There's some castles and stuff like that." And we were all just like, "Yeah, we really want to do fuck all."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And everybody.
Oh, Joe's a good lad, though, isn't he? I like Joe.
Top man. He put us up in his guest house.
Did he?
Yeah, I'll send you the picture of the room he put me up in.
Yeah.
Oh mate, it's just.
Yeah.
It's proper UK thrash legend room, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet it is.
Anyway, look,
I mean,
I've totally gone off here.
Sorry.
We were just where were we? Interested, right? What were right? What was it? Came for? Was there any music that was special or important to you whilst you were fighting cancer?
Oh, I feel like just to finish off that last question, that wasn't a complaint about touring. I think it's worth acknowledging that as much as grueling as it is, it's still a fucking privilege to be able to do it, in it, sort of thing. But in terms of music, I remember at one point that was around the time that the Mastodon album came out, one at Emperor's Sand.
Oh, yeah.
And so there was something about that. There was even just the significance of it, because I remember watching an interview with Brent Hines going, "Oh, this is about,
cancer.
Surviving cancer and stuff like that." And I was like, fuck, right. Even if, like, you don't sit and read the lyrics and all this stuff, because the lyrics are quite sort of, what's the word, like, fucking metaphorical, that's it, are they?
Yeah.
So the lyrics are, like, direct. I don't know if there's any song on that album that particularly goes cancer, but just listening to the music and getting the sort of vibe of it and all this stuff, and just, like, you go, you know what, I know that this album's for this, so I'm going to fucking take this as my thing, sort of thing. And it ends up becoming like an unofficial, like, your own sort of soundtrack to it and all this stuff. And yeah, so there was that. And I thought I came across a group called Death Grips, who are like, I don't know how to describe them, but they're like some kind of weird mental trip-hop thing. And the music and the lyrics and the vocals and stuff, it's all just absolute fucking chaos. And I was like, I remember I was like, there was something about it. I was just like, right, and it's really sort of aggressive and it's really in your face and it's loud and it's just nasty and ugly music. And I was like, this is, there's something about this that sort of flicks a switch for me. And I remember even, I went downstairs and I went to my old man. I was like, Dad, listen to this. And he was like, yeah, that's the soundtrack for now, innit? As wank as that sounds. He goes, yeah, there's something about that music that fits for where we're at the minute. So,
no, that sounds really cool, man. That sounds really cool. And Next question. This is all still from Robbie. It's all part of the same question.
Right.
In what way has your outlook on life and personality changed from fighting and beating cancer?
Oh, I've had quite a lot of conversations about this. It's really weird. I feel like a totally different person. Like, you kind of, there's a part of you kind of goes, you know what? I've been through this fucking shit thing twice. I've fought for my life twice, and there's a few different things that come out of that. So one, there was the initial sort of shock of it, and the sort of it was a weird sort of. I remember coming out the end of it just going, you know, what the fuck? And so I was a bit angry that my body had sort of put me through it. And then there's a bit of it also goes, you know what? I handled that really fucking well. Not to blow my own horn, but I fucking did. I handled it like a boss.
Yeah.
And so there's a bit of sort of self-respect that comes out of that. And you go, and then there's a bit of it comes after that. I go, you know what? If I can handle something as fucking horrible as that, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, the illness itself, just because of what it entailed, and then the treatments and everything, you won't fucking wish it on anyone. And you go, you know what? I handled that really well. There's not really too much that I can't handle anymore, is there? So even if things don't kind of work out the way that you want them to, you know that you'll be able to pick yourself up from it because, you know, you've been through fucking hell and back twice. So
yeah.
So then you just kind of go, yeah, well, you know what? Fuck it. Well, I'll fucking go through that again then. Well, not that specifically, but I can handle that because I've handled way worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got really into sort of fitness stuff again, and I came across this guy who I really like on Instagram. Is called the Andrew Tracy. If you're into like weightlifting and stuff, and he said he had a client who used to meet at 6:30 every morning, and his client used to say to him, "Give me the most horrendous workout you could ever think of, because I know that going through the rest of the day, nothing will be as bad as that." And this kind of has worked out for me in terms of my entire life, really, I guess. Like,
yeah,
you know what, I've been through that, so this, you know, I still get stressed out with things, and every so often something catches me off guard, and even when something catches me off guard, I guess that's the biggest shock now, because I'm like, oh, this has actually made me a bit nervous, this has made me a bit scared, and I'm not kind of used to that anymore. So there is that, and yeah, there was a thing I remember. I had like a drunk conversation with somebody once, like a year or so ago, and her parent, like one of her mum had gone through it and all this stuff, and she was like, "Oh, I can't believe how much it's changed," and all this stuff. And I said to her, "Look, that's not abnormal for somebody to change." I said, the person that went into the hospital and was told, you know, it's cancer, he never fucking came out again. Somebody different fucking came out. As cheesy and as fucking wank as that sounds, I feel like a completely different. I feel like a different person just came out of that hospital. You know what I mean? Everything's happened since then. And, yeah.
Well, I think something so momentous. It's not surprising that it would have a huge effect.
Yeah.
You know, well, you know, I'm glad you did, mate. I'm glad you did.
Yeah. There's a bit of it, like, it's always going to be, it's going to be one of those things when I'm like 80 where I go, you know what, I'll be cancer twice when I'm 20. It's going to be one of them. So it's always going to be that sort of pivotal moment that sort of went the way that's kind of like set the path for everything else that's come after it, sort of thing. It's and there's still a bit like my mates fucking. I every time I'm like drunk around a certain group of mates, they're like, "Oh, Dan's going to start talking about his cancer again soon." There's still a bit of it. There was like, I think there was a bit of sort of mental. I don't know. I don't want to necessarily use the word trauma as such, but there was a real sort of thing that, you know, like cognitive dissonance that like came out when I was drunk and everything.
Yeah.
So that took a while to put that to bed. There was still a bit of like unsettled rage about your body trying to fucking kill you. So that took a while to get over. But yeah.
That does sound like a difficult kind of conundrum to figure out. And like you said, you kind of you sort of proud of yourself for getting through it, and angry with your body for putting yourself through it in the first place. Yeah.
And just the whole thing of like when you go and sit for your first round of chemo, and you're getting home going, what the fuck have you just done to me? So I think, why? I've never felt like this in my life. What have you just done? And then the sort of shock of, I called it the Breaking Bad moment. You know that bit did you watch Breaking Bad?
Yes, yeah.
So that bit where he's rubbing his hands through his hair, and the first time he notices his hair falling out and stuff. And that was exactly, I was in the bathroom and I'd washed my hands or something, and I'd put some gel in my hair, and I looked down and it was all just spider webs across my fucking hand and all this stuff, and just the shock of it and everything. It was the you know what I mean? There's just all of that sort of stuff going through it all, and then so it did take me quite a long time to sort of get right with that in my head, sort of thing.
Yeah, and despite the fact that you know it's coming and you've watched Breaking Bad and everybody knows that it's going to happen, but it still doesn't prepare you for when it does.
No, it's just all of a sudden it becomes even more real.
Yeah,
you're already fucking trying not to fucking. You're trying to get your brain to work after you've had all these drugs pumped into it. It felt like somebody had sucked my brain out and stuffed it full of bad, not bad, like, you know, like that insulation stuff they put in the lock.
Fiberglass.
Yeah, the fiberglass stuff, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like your brain's been stuffed with fiberglass, and then all of a sudden you're pulling your own hair out of your head, like in chunks as well. Not quite as dramatic as it was on Breaking Bad, but still.
I don't know, mate. You're doing a very good job of making it sound very dramatic. Yeah. I'm good at that. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Absolutely. Well, this will bring you back down to earth. Finally, from Robbie, have you got a top 3 albums of this year? Not blues stuff, though.
Not blues stuff.
Yeah. And I haven't added that. He has put that in there because these guys know you well.
Right. Fucking hell.
Do you realise that? You do realise you've got fans of my podcast, but they're fans of you because of everything that you've been through. So these guys remember your experience that well that 3 years ago they remember that you were saying that you were really getting into the blues, and so they're really hoping that it's going to be 3 metal albums. It doesn't have to be metal, but not blues.
Right. Ooh. I don't know.
No albums come out this year. You know, maybe bands putting something out for the first time in 29 years.
Yeah, you don't let me fucking say. You know what? I actually canned your album when I was on holiday this year. I really did.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. My mate messaged me going, "Have you read the album, the Acid Rain album?" I was like, "What? Is it out now?" Seems like, yeah. But shit, right? So got on Spotify and everything, and I absolutely canned it. It is actually a class album.
Oh, cheers, mate. Thank you. I really wasn't fishing for that. I've got to be honest.
Of course you won't. So yeah, oh God, I'm not into that. It's one of those things, because I feel like I've been a bit out of the loop sort of thing. I'm sure I could pick out probably 20 albums or something, but I just can't think of them now. You've put me on the spot.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a couple more questions to do. If any leap to mind, then shout them out.
Hang on. When did Sleep release their new album? Was that this year or was it last year?
I couldn't tell you, mate. I couldn't tell you.
The Science is by Sleep. I've fucking hammered that.
Well, Robbie Maguire finishes to say it was inspiring to hear you talk so candidly and matter of fact about cancer.
Yeah, no worries. I kind of think it's one of those things. There's still that. Oh, it's a big C and all this stuff. I'm like, you're just giving it more fucking power, aren't you, sort of thing. So, and I think because it's such people underestimate how much of an isolating sort of illness it is as well. Like, people don't, because you're going through this thing that you don't know to. I don't think I ever met anyone who'd been through it before. So I think one person, in fact, I knew had been through it before, and you just kind of. It's really hard to sort of relate it to people without trying to sound like you're feeling sorry for yourself. So there's so much. And then just the physical implications of the fact that you've got no immune system. So there's a practical fact of you can't interact with as many people as you'd want to.
Yeah.
So the idea that I had an opportunity to come out and go, look, somebody else gets what you're going through, because I've been through there myself, and hopefully somebody else can listen to it and go, like, I don't feel a shit about this sort of thing. So, but, and as I say, honesty is always the best policy unless you can get a better story out of lying. So.
Absolutely. Right, we now move on to Carl, who's got a few questions. His first question is an interesting one. How did people's attitudes and behaviours change towards you during the cancer period, both, either positively or negatively?
It was interesting. Working in the prison, I think there was a couple of people who cried, but then once they'd gotten over that, nothing really changed. I got ragged for having cancer, sort of thing, by my mates. Like, oh, you fucking fanny, what are you doing having cancer for? Which was actually amazing. I was just like, none of them, they all sort of helped me take it in my stride by taking it in their stride.
It's what you need, isn't it? That you need, you need them to not make a big deal of it, not treat you with kid gloves. You need them to take the piss out of you, like it's nothing, because that's how you need to feel about it. Yeah,
exactly. I think if people had felt sorry for me and stuff, I'd have gotten irritated about it, because I'm not feeling sorry for myself. Yeah. So don't you fucking bother. And I refused to see myself as a victim as well. So, because as far as I wasn't a victim, I was just a person who was about to beat cancer. So, so people's attitudes really didn't change too much. I think there was a couple of times when I looked really ill, like my mum really sort of struggled with that. I think she said there was one point we went, because I used to make sure I got out as much as I could, as much as I was allowed to.
Yeah.
So we used to go into the marina in Hull and stuff every third weekend and just get out in the sun, because it was the middle of fucking summer as well.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So you're slapping on the Factor 50 and you're wearing a fucking Benny hat in the middle of summer. And she said it was like coming towards the end of it, so I had no eyebrows left, no eyelids and all this stuff, and I was white, no hair or anything. And my mum said that was absolutely brutal. So she said that she really struggled with that. But yeah, I don't think people's attitudes really change negatively. And then, but the only thing is now is every time I bump into somebody I've not seen for a bit, they're like, "How's your health?" sort of thing. Are you still well and all this stuff? And yeah, and then for a few people, I ended up. It sounds so fucking arrogant, but I ended up almost becoming a bit of like a. When you hear somebody else has had the same sort of news and they go, "Oh well, Dan's been through it. Talk to Dan and all this stuff." He's almost become a bit of a fucking. You
became a cancer celebrity.
Yeah, a cancer mascot. Yeah.
Did you have like autograph pictures to autograph made up and little stickers? You've met Cancer Dan.
yeah. I should do it. Yeah, I should have done. I never capitalised on that very well, did I?
No, not at all, mate. And to be honest, I'm gutted I didn't think of it at the time. We could have made a few quid off that, you and me.
Oh fuck! I missed the trick.
Oh, seriously. Never mind.
Never mind.
So, what one piece... By the way, I have to say at this point that this has been such a really interesting and in-depth part of the interview with questions coming in from the patrons that I think I'm just going to put this... I'm going to put this on the main podcast, because I don't think it should be... I don't think it should be hidden away, because there's... obviously, the horrible thing about cancer is that we know there are going to be people listening who are affected, have a family member or something like that, and it was 3 years ago, and I think for them to hear your story would be really inspiring, and we've really kind of focused on that part of I was going to say your career, but having cancer is not a career move, is it?
No, not quite.
Not quite. No. So I think it's this is too important to hide away behind some fucking paywall. We need to have this out there.
Fair enough.
And this next question is really made me see that as well, which is what one piece of advice would you give to anyone affected by cancer?
Oh, that's a tricky one. The thing is, I could be saying what I'm saying and there'd be somebody listening to it going, "Oh, you fucking arsehole, I'm fucking going through this and shit."
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So for example, somebody that I work with quite closely has just found out that she's got breast cancer, and she said one of the things she's really sick of is people saying, "Stay positive." So it's all right me coming out and going, "It's worked out all right," but if somebody else is going through something and they've had worse news or something, I might be sitting there going, fuck you. And I fucking get that. I don't blame them for thinking that way. And you know what? It's not stay positive. I wouldn't say don't stay positive, but just be okay with the fact that you feel fucking shit. So one piece of advice to add on to that, to actually answer the question, so you're having 2 for 1 here, you're welcome. I guess just find that bit of yourself that's willing to have a good fucking scrap. And also have confidence in your ability to have that fight as well, and to really fucking knuckle down and, you know, just really go for it. And also, as well as that, not have confidence in your own ability, but also have confidence in the fact that, I mean, if you're in our area, if you're going to Castle Hill Hospital, I mean, that place is an absolute fucking godsend sort of thing. I can't praise the place, the way it's organised, the staff and everything, and fair enough, it has some of the same issues that a lot of the NHS has, but considering the state that the NHS is, the way it ran while I was going through that was just nothing short of absolutely amazing, I thought. The staff just don't get enough of a fucking thank you, and I don't thank them enough myself, and I think they're all fucking guardian angels, you know what I mean? I've never seen such a group of people work so hard in such an emotional job as well, because they're having to put all this shit into these really poorly people and stuff, and they're having to do it so well. You can imagine them going home just fucking drained.
Oh, they are special people. They are very special people. I remember when my dad was in Jimmy's in Leeds in the heart unit, and it was almost like he was in the VIP wing of the hospital.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Though.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, you know, you can equate it to having a AAA pass. Because it is almost like you're a cut above the other patients. And everyone's like, look, get out of his way. Yeah, he's really ill. You know, you've got people with like broken arms and broken legs being pushed out of the way.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And so I know exactly what you mean. Those people are absolute angels. They really are. And here's a changing tack slightly. What's your favourite Reanimator song to play?
Oh, favourite Reanimator song to play? Shock Treatment.
Right, okay. Now hanging around there.
That was always my favourite one. It's just a bit fucking... It's just cool. It's got some great riffs in it, and it's a bit... I don't know. It's not... You're quite sort of... It's not your bog standard song, I don't think, and it's just got some really fucking aggressive riffs on it. It was just cool. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, look, and finally, the final question from Carl, final question of this section, is there a gig, you know, festival support slot or venue that you would love to play?
Ooh, I really loved playing that second stage at Bloodstock, that first gig that we did for Reanimator. So any opportunity we get to play on that again, I'd fucking jump at the chance. Venues, I mean, again, Camden Underworld I thought was cool as fuck. I thought that was great. It's one of those things where it's like, it's not necessarily the most attractive or anything, it's just legendary. So, you know, when you go, right, I played fucking Camden Underworld, so it's just cool. So, probably one of those two that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, if I was going to, like, really go out, like Rock am Ring in Germany, let's get 13 links in the fucking 50,000 German people.
Yes.
Probably Camden Underworld, and as I say, even just that second stage on Bloodstock was just cool.
Yeah, the Sophie tent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I was lucky enough to do one song with you guys, and then play it the following year, and it was amazing. Yeah,
it's great, isn't it? And I like the fact that it's big enough to get a decent enough crowd, but it's also enclosed enough that the people aren't too lost at the back as well.
Yeah, it's just perfect. I felt like it was the biggest club show we'd ever played.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think there must be something about playing these arena shows and these stadium shows where you kind of lose a bit of the connection with the people and stuff, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? So, yeah, I get that. The biggest club show you've ever played. It's like, yeah, brilliant.
I mean, that was just... it went down really well, and I just think that part of the reason is because it everybody there just felt like it was a club show.
Yeah, absolutely.
But well, dude, that actually brings us, believe it or not, to an end.
Right.
Wow, it's been we're coming up for an hour, mate.
An hour.
I know.
Jesus.
I know.
I need my tea.
Okay, I was just going to say, go and get your tea, lad. Go and get your tea. Well, look, I once again, thanks so much, mate. I really do appreciate it.
No worries. Just cheers for having us on. Like, even back in the day when you was having us on, like, what was it, every month or something like that? Yeah, it helped as much to sort of have my own, like, sort of pseudo-pretentious philosophical fucking ramblings about it, just to get all that shit out of my system as well, sort of thing. So thank you very much for having me on and doing this again. It's just been great. And
no, it's an absolute pleasure, man. And I mean, you know, it's as much as it helps you, I know you help loads of people listening. And to this day, I mean, there you go. There's questions from people who know you so well from that time that they still remember what you went through. They remember the kind of music you're listening to, and they don't want to hear what your favourite blues album is.
Yeah, it's mad. The fact that people are paying that much attention is just, it means a lot. I really do appreciate it. So thank you very much if you've listened to it as well. Just anyone that has been listening, I really do appreciate it.
That's awesome, man. Look, let's not leave it so long next time, and I'll see you. I'll see you next time we're up your way. Yeah.
Do let us know when you're going to be up in Howard or something like that. And
I will. And also, if you and your good lady ever fancy a trip to London, or there's a band you want to go and see, and you think, I've got a spare room. You're welcome to it. You know, I'll give you a set of keys, and you can come and go as you please.
Thank you very much. As long as you're not going to leave us in a fucking room full of incriminating evidence that we're going to end up getting tarnished with, then cheers, man.
Well, I'm sure I don't know what you mean. No. Well, you would be keeping in a room full of Acid Rain merchandise. So if I see you leaving the house and you're twice the size you were when you arrived, I'll know what you're fucking wearing.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
All right, mate. Well, look, have a good one. I'll have a great Christmas.
Yeah.
And
you too, mate.
See you soon, mate.
All the best. It's been an absolute pleasure. Take it easy.
It's been my pleasure, mate. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there you go. What a guy. What an interesting, inspiring guy. What a positive tale. It's all good. It's all good. I mean, apart from obviously having cancer in the first place, which isn't good. But yeah, just what a guy. Really enjoyed doing that. It was really good to catch up with him again. And thanks to the patrons who submitted those questions and got the conversation going as well in that direction. Really enjoyed doing it, and not exactly the most upbeat shit you're going to hear this Christmas, but hey, let's hope that all changes now. And I really am winging it because I haven't done the interview. This is the day before I've interviewed him, but I'm sure this is going to be great. And now an absolutely hilarious, brilliant, wonderful, uplifting, fingers crossed, interview with Godless. I hope it is. Yeah, I think that'll do, man.
All right, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
I got the mic plugged in, but I was optimistic.
Well, that's very unlike you, and that'll serve you right.
And it's dashed as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll teach you for being optimistic and looking on the bright side. You idiot! What are you doing that for?
Oh yeah. How are you? How's things going?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. Got the first part of the tour out of the way, which was great fun. Album's been well received, and we're landing on people's top 10 lists of the year, which is a completely new feeling for me. So yeah, that's been awesome, man. It's been a really good year, and also it's ending brilliantly because after 9 months of battling with the NHS, I'm finally getting somewhere with my medication. So it looks like I've got my first appointment in January, where hopefully I'll be starting on some meds, which will be an interesting experience for you and all of the listeners.
Are you allowed to talk about what the meds are for?
Yeah, for ADHD.
Ah, gotcha.
So
and you feel like you all right, so is ADHD one of the things that you've always had and always struggled with, or do you think it's something that kind of comes and goes for you?
No, it's basically in the last 10 years it's been accepted that it is present in adults because, funnily enough, it's a neurological disorder, and it doesn't go away when you're a child. It's just not diagnosed. So if you have it, you've had it all your life, and you have it all the time. And some people have it too. It's like any disease; it affects people differently. But I've just got to a stage in my life where it's kind of, it wears you down and it wears you out. I mean, it's no coincidence that I'm 49 and single, and I think I've just burnt out every single, woman I've ever had a relationship with. I annoy myself sometimes, so it's hopefully it'll help. Hopefully.
So you're looking at it as a dating drug?
No, I'm not looking at it as a dating drug. No, but that is.
Usually you administer it to the dates when they're not looking, right?
Well, I look. I've got to be honest. It's going to be interesting to see what sort of effect it has. Whether it will affect my creativity or anything. I just basically something to take the edge off would be great, because that's why I've self-medicated with weed all these years, which is basically it's the only thing that can sort of calm me down and slow me down in my tracks, and it gets a bit tiring being wired all the time.
Yeah, I bet. But what's so interesting to me is I imagine that there's probably somebody listening who's thinking, boy, it'd be so great if I could just get motivated. I just want to do stuff, and they're looking for the opposite. And so I guess it's really all about trying to find some sort of balance, but that balance is not something that is defined.
Well, this is the other end of the scale, you see, because ultimately you could say that, but ADHD is also a cousin of autism, and a cousin of bipolarism as well. So there are certain things that there are certain crossovers. I mean, I can get quite manic, mania highs, and I can also get very, very low lows. I don't have. I'm not bipolar, and I'm not autistic. I'm just good old fashioned ADHD. But there are all sorts of little bits mixed in with that as well. So whilst yes, I could be super motivated, but by the same token, unable to focus. So it was described to me as having it's like having a racing car for a brain with bicycle brakes. So yeah. Ah. So it can it can be great, but it can be a fucking nightmare as well.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I feel for you because it must be such a struggle. And then, but what I imagine is you're trying to figure out how much of the ADHD is its thing and how much of it is your personality. And then it's you're not just taking a drug to try to, as you say, take the edge off. You're playing with your own personality. I can't think of anything much more fundamental.
Well, I think that's a very interesting point, because I went down that road with the doctor, and she said, look, it's not about personality, because that was my concern as well. And she said, look, it's not about personality. It won't affect who you're it won't affect your personality. It just affects traits within you that are not necessarily your personality. They're just things you do, and they're just kind of the way you act. They don't actually make up who you are. So it's more about taking the edge off behaviours, not taking the edge off who you are.
Well, I guess it's the how people perceive who you are, because we don't know who other people are. All we have to go on to gauge someone's personality is the things they say, the way they make us feel, the way that they act, and that sort of thing, which ADHD would be a part of.
Yes, yeah. I mean, look, we've all got little bits and pieces here, and do you know what? Look, as much as I would love to continue, because we always just pile into the conversation. As much as I would love to continue this, right? Before I did the interview, right? The listeners have just listened to an hour of a catch up with Cancer Dan, and his continuing recovery from cancer, and it was all sort of quite, it was quite sort of, oh, this is quite heavy. And then I talked this interview up, which I haven't done yet, but I've recorded up to the beginning of this podcast in the podcast. So I've literally introduced and gone, right, this is going to be a really fun, exciting, upbeat, inspirational. This is going to be a really good laugh. Me and Godless having a really good laugh, and we've gone straight in. My fault entirely. We got straight into the fucking the world of medication and drugs and behaviours. Brilliant. So,
my left arm's sore, man. So sore today. Oh, yeah.
Dear me.
I can relate.
So hang on, man. Right, okay, look. You've done loads of homework for this, of which, of course, I have done none. So, let's let you get cracking. Yeah, you've done all the homework. You've got all your notes. Come on, say what you've got to say about the year.
A few days ago, we were on the direct message on Twitter, and the thing that was sticking out to me is that, like the big story of the year, right? Big story of the year. The biggest story. The only thing that everybody should have been talking about all year long that nobody seemed to really talk about, it just kind of went off, like, without much fanfare, was the end of Slayer. And, like, that to me is, it's pretty shocking. I mean, I know I haven't been up on all the metal sites and metal news and, checking out what the people are on the message boards talking about and all that stuff, but there was almost there weren't, like, big features on, why Slayer is important or, the first time I heard Slayer and all the stuff that you would have expected. I mean, I think Lemmy Dime probably had more fanfare than Slayer hanging it up, and to me it's criminal.
I completely agree, as I did the other day. I completely agree with you. I think part of it is because, and in fact you mentioned this, and is it the Motley Crue factor? Is Motley Crue coming back just made Slayer quitting just seem like a really empty, hollow gesture, which I think we both totally agree is absolutely not the fucking point.
Well, and I think I said this, that the Slayer farewell is the only farewell, I believe. They are done. They are absolutely done. And, man, it makes me sad. But, like, God damn it. Motley Crue ruining music again. I mean, Motley Crue almost single-handedly created Napster. You remember Napster, and everybody dived into downloading all the songs that they wanted, and they could get rid of all the files that they didn't want. You know why that was because people were sick to death of spending $15, $16 to buy a full-length album based on a single song. And people have been doing that with Motley Crue for years, and everybody knows that Motley Crue only ever had one good song per album. The rest of the album sucks. Their greatest hits is almost as bad. It's got 3 good songs on it. The rest of it sucks. And so Motley Crue ruined music. They were among them. It was like them and TLC and all the other pop stuff that came around in the late 80s, early 90s that was just like all this one good song, the rest of it's crap. One good song, the rest of it's crap. And then here it is, Motley Crue. They're pooping on the death of Slayer? Come on.
Yeah, I found that comparison incredibly annoying. Which I have mentioned elsewhere on this podcast. Actually, just it just irritates me. I think it's really easy to be. I think it's really easy to be cynical of the whole Slayer thing, but I also think it's just people going, oh well, and just reeling off all of these bands who said they quit and came back and all the rest of it. It's like, yeah, and none of them are Slayer. You know,
Yeah.
If Kerry King says he's done, he's fucking done. Simple as that. And I tell you what, I've got a sneaking suspicion we might even get a Slayer Mark III come next year. I really genuinely think Kerry may even go with do you know what? I'm not fucking doing anything new. I'm just going to do Slayer, and I'm going to change it up again, and I'm going to get a bass player and a singer.
Yeah, and do like the songs of Slayer or something.
Well, or potentially a new album. I mean, I know people keep talking about it, but it's just, and whether he's reliable or not enough is another question. But Phil Anselmo is probably one of the only people who could actually walk into Slayer and people would go, "Yeah, okay, I'll give this a listen." I note from the tone of your that you're not sure, and I totally get that. I am not sure also. You know, I'm not saying I have any answers here or anything like that, or any of this is actually even likely to happen. But I'd kind of listen. You know, it might interest me to hear Anselmo singing new Slayer stuff that we haven't heard before.
Do you think that the fact that Lombardo was not involved was, sort of added to that cynicism?
No, I don't think so, because I think anybody who had that attitude prior to the final tour being announced anyway. I don't think anyone heard there was a final tour and going, "Oh, well, that's it. That's the last straw for me." Dave's not doing that. They haven't invited Dave back, so now I really am done with him. I mean, maybe for a few people, but I would just say that they missed the boat in that case. I mean, Dave signed his own death warrant. You know, you against you. I'm well documented as being down, as coming down on the side of Kerry and Tom on that one. Dave was badly advised and tried to shaft his bandmates and basically tried to hold everyone for ransom and say, well, I can't go to Australia, and if I can't go, that means we can't play and we'll get sued, so you have to agree to my demands. And you don't do that to people you're in business with unless you're a fucking idiot.
Well, yeah, he wasn't smart on the business, that's for sure.
No.
But, yeah, I think, it went both ways, but, yeah, certainly. But, the idea that, the thing that they compare it to is, 2018 was the end of Black Sabbath, which, those guys are 104 each, and I still don't believe that that's the last we'll see of them.
Yeah.
But when Bill Ward wasn't involved, there was a lot of whoa, why not Bill? Where's Bill? And I never got that sense with Lombardo that people were like, whoa, where's Lombardo? It's like everybody was kind of it'd be nice, but we know that's not happening.
Yeah, and he wasn't on the last album, and I think that situation had really moved on. I mean, there's even a song on Repentless about him and his failed attempt to shaft everyone in Slayer. So, I didn't get that at all. I really didn't.
Do you think that the fact that there's no celebration of the end, that it's going to impact their legacy?
No, I think I agree with there should have been more made of it. There should have been, every fucking rock magazine cover that month, or the month of the final show, should have been Slayer, and there should have been articles with just every fucking musician you can think of being asked to name their favourite Slayer song, or how did they discover Slayer, or do they have a Slayer t-shirt, really. And it should have been broad. It should have been across actors, movie directors, musicians, CEOs, sports stars, everything. Really, really feel like the metal community should have pushed the fucking boat out and really done something special. And they just seems to have kind of just gone off with a whimper. I mean, not so much, well, then again, the tour, they toured for over a year, that final tour. And here's another point as well. People going, oh, yeah, no, they'll be back. It's like, have you not seen Tom at the end of every gig? Spending at least 5 minutes on stage taking it in every fucking night. He's doing that for a reason.
Yeah. Yep, you bet. And he's not doing it for the audience. He's doing it for himself.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely,
God.
yeah. Well, no, maybe he is doing it for both. Maybe he is doing it for both. He's doing it for him, which is his reasons, his chance to say goodbye and savor the moment, and I'm never doing this. But also, those are the same reasons as the fans. Because I remember when, and I mentioned this on my chat to No Friender, but I remember going to the last show at Wembley, and the show finished, and Tom stood there on his own, and no fucker moved. You know, nobody was leaving. The house lights were on, but you didn't see people pouring for the exits. Everybody was stood there, just cheering Tom.
Yeah.
It was insane.
What's the over/under on when he cuts his hair and like really embraces the old man thing?
Well, according to Tobias Forge, he's going to be a full-time fucking Santa, isn't he? The fucking cock. Yeah, Tobias Forge thinks that he would make a great Santa. Apparently, that is the world we live in now. That is news. That gets reported as news. What the fuck? Honestly,
I mean, I'm trying to picture like I now that I'm living back in Texas, I think I gotta get Chuck and the two of us have got to get in his car and we got to drive to Tom's hometown just to kind of see if we can get a lay of the land. Like, what the hell is the life of Tom Araya post Slayer? What does that even look like?
Oh yeah, you got to do it, man. Get the two of you down there for a Chuck and Godless on the road special. Chuck and Godless hunt down Tom Araya.
They're gonna hunt them down. Like, I mean, I know it's a little creepy and all that sort of thing, but like, I'm just so, my understanding is that town is just middle of nowhere, just nothingville. So it's the town that the doctor gets sent to, like on his internship, and he falls for the local farm girl and never leaves. It's that type of little town. I mean, what is he gonna do? Like, what is Tom Araya like? Does he wake up whenever he feels like it, and then watches like Oprah reruns that he missed for years and years? I mean, what does he do?
Well, I would imagine it's going to start off by doing all the things that he hasn't been able to do, which is just waking up in the morning, having breakfast, and just hanging and chilling. And he'll be doing all of the stuff that he does before he goes away on tour. But except he's going to have, a bit more to go at. And he's not disappearing on tour. So I don't know. I guess not having a family, I wouldn't know. I spend most of the time avoiding mine. His
kids have got to be almost college age if they're not already in college or out of high school or whatever, secondary school, and pursuing their own lives, whatever that ends up being. So I don't, I mean, he's got the wife, but is he like throw on some gloves and then tend to his garden, or you need something to kind of like get you through the day. Some sort of, it sort of wraps back, like even without ADHD, you still like want to do something for the day,
Yeah. Yes. Well, I don't know, fucking not a clue, dude. Not a clue.
Oh, these are the questions. Like this is to me is like almost more interesting than the end of Slayer. Like, what's Tom Araya doing today? That should be a reality show.
Well, maybe not, mate. Maybe it's just you on that one. And I think that is quite likely. So look, covering Slayer, which I completely agree. I really do think that the metal community missed a trick there.
I assume you put them on the Mount Rushmore of metal, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay,
Although you're sounding a bit like Jamie Jaster now, because fucking somebody mentions barbecue sauce. Oh, which barbecue sauce would be on your Mount Rushmore, man? Oh, I like cats and dogs. What cats would be on your Mount Rushmore? He's got a fucking Mount Rushmore for the fucking socks in his drawer, that motherfucker. Yes, they without a doubt. Right, now, let's crack on. Let's do what we said we'd do. I want to get your best albums and shit of 2019. How many have you got?
Well, all right. So I put together my top 10, but what's funny is like I've got a buddy on Twitter that I was DMing with, and the other day, and just I was like, all right, so what's your list? And he sends it to me, and like I hadn't heard of like 6 of the bands on the list. I hadn't even heard of them, and I'm like, what are these like? Are these Bandcamp bands, a bunch of tech death bands that nobody's heard of, or what? No. It's the people listen to home, man. So I feel totally out of it.
Well, this is going to be interesting because you're going to tell me your top 10, and I won't have heard of 6 of those bands.
Well, I think you might be surprised. I mean, I think most of them are fairly, like popular. Really, actually, probably all of them. Although there's one that I don't know if you're familiar with this. She didn't get my top 10, but like. It really is an album that everybody needs to listen to. And, like, for me, this album is kind of like, it's like, I'm incredibly impressed by it. I am incredibly, I'm in awe of the artistry. I will probably never listen to it again. It's like a.
Can I have a guess who you're going to say? Can I have a guess who you're going to say?
Yeah.
Are you going to say Poppy?
No.
Oh, never mind.
I was going to say Caligula.
Right. Never heard of her, it, whatever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. It's, I don't know. I get the shivers thinking about it. It's one of the scariest albums I've ever listened to. It's like a cattle decapitation video. Like, okay, I'm really impressed. I'm never doing that again, And it is popping up on a lot of people's top 10s, and I just fear for those people who like would listen to this, repeatedly, because that's a tough one. It's something that I almost would fear being desensitized of. But so it's not in my top 10, but it's like got this sort of truly honorable mention. It's just an album for folks who really like their music to be scary and I don't know what just really progressive, but not in that sense of how many notes can I play, how quickly.
Yeah.
But progressive is the idea of doing something really, really new with the music. That's an album I really recommend for everybody.
Cool, man. Cool. All right. Well, so do you want to right? Are you going to? Do you want to make? I've got a top 10, and I've got kind of four honourable mentions. So, do you want to go with your honourable mentions first?
Well, that's my one and only.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, my honourable mentions are Exorder, Slipknot, Tool, and Agnostic Front.
Oh, okay. I love that Exorder album. But the thing is that, like, you would think it's like 25 years later, you would think that these guys would, like, have figured out how to write a hook. And they haven't been. But it's great thrash. It's just completely hookless thrash.
Yes, completely hookless thrash. That should be on the poster. Completely hookless thrash, and let people figure out if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Not saying if that's good or bad. I'm just saying that this is completely hookless thrash.
Yeah, I remember when they first came out, The Law and what was the Slaughter in the Vatican, especially, right? Was a freaking great album, super technical, definitely unique sounding, and then like here comes Pantera, who, as far as I'm concerned, directly ripped off Exorder sound-wise, but then like filled the music with hooks. It was just they did Exorder, but with hooks, and then so I thought, well, now that Pantera's really dead and gone, like here's an opportunity for Exorder to go, hey, we're going to take our sound back, and we're going to show you how we could have written hooks just like Pantera did. And they didn't. They just go, this is us doing us again. And I was like, well, all right, that's cool, but could you write one hook, just something I can, hold on to?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll go with that. Okay, well, that's quite the discussion on an album that is not in my top 10. Is it in your top 10?
Let's see. Should we go one by one?
Well, is Exorder in your top 10?
Oh, no, it did not.
Fucking hell, right, okay, all right, brilliant. So we've got, Jesus, God knows how enthusiastic you're going to get with stuff that you actually like.
Yeah, like Slipknot didn't make my top 10. To be honest with you, I still haven't even listened to the new Tool. I don't know. I'm not a Tool guy. And
it's Tool, mate. It's Tool.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, it's one of those albums where I kind of feel bad because Tool are at the point now where if you don't like them, it's your fault. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're at that stage for a band now, like where they're so big and they're so pervasive and everybody knows how wonderful they are and how great Maynard is and what amazing musicians they are and about how even the simple stuff is actually really technical and all the rest. And everybody is now just, okay, fine. We're all sucking on the Tool cock, okay? We all get it. We all think they're amazing. Tool are brilliant. Tool are wonderful. And if you don't like them, then that is your problem and that is your fault. You are wrong. And that's, do you know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel, because I'm like, yeah, it's all Tool all the time, and some of it's boring. In fact, quite a lot of it's boring.
Yeah.
Those songs are too long. And all I am going to say is, if you're going to wait that long to put an album out, and one of the songs on your new album is a fucking drum solo, you can fuck off.
Didn't make the top 10.
That is just fucking disrespectful as far as I'm concerned.
Drum solos in general, I think, are disrespectful. But yeah,
but drum solo on an album, on your first album for fucking how many years? I mean, just
it's totally ludicrous. But like at the same time, like the band has got like only 70 minutes to play. Why would you spend 5 minutes of that banging on the drums, and nothing else?
Just boggles my fucking mind. Well, anyway, right, that's again, we continue to discuss the albums that are not on either of our top 10 lists.
Yeah, but at least that's one thing that Motley Crue got right. They sent Tommy Lee up on a roller coaster during his drum solo. Okay, now you can do that. That's
yeah, but more importantly, he was never allowed to do it on record. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I mean, drum solo live is almost acceptable. It gives everybody else a rest, gives everyone else a break, and gets the person who's hidden behind the pile of wood to let their ego get stroked. Fine.
That's sort of my feeling on solos in general, for the most part.
Yeah, is it actually a drum solo, or is it actually just the singer resting? You know, is that what's really going on here that's of importance? Right. Okay. So, my top 10 is just the top 10. It's not like number one is not number one. They're just they're in any order. Well, it depends what day it is and how much and what mood I'm in as to what my favourite is that day.
But it's not like the top 10's locked in stone. I mean, like my 2017 list has shifted a bit. My number 3 is now number 1, and number 2 is now number 4, and stuff like that. But at least
wow, you actually go back to your lists. You actually go back to your lists and curate them, do you? Like some fucking teenager. Oh, I wonder what my favourite album was 2 years ago.
Well, no, the thing is that, like usually, to be honest, like all the albums that didn't make the top 10, top 15, top 20 list for that year, I generally just don't bother with.
Well, okay, fine. Well, look, first on my list, I'm going to get this fucking list started if it kills me. First on my list is a good friend of mine, Matt Fox, who is the main man behind Shai Hulud, sent me a project of his, which is available on release. The band is Zombie Apocalypse, and the album is called Life Without Pain is a Fucking Fantasy, and it is just 10 tracks in and out The longest song on it is 3 minutes, and it is just absolutely brutal hardcore. But it's just phenomenal. The whole album, I think, is about like 18 minutes, 20 minutes, and it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. And there's nothing else. There's just nothing out there like it at the moment. Zombie Apocalypse.
I mean, it sounds like old school death metal. Is that kind of what they're doing?
No, it's hardcore. It's just insane hardcore. Brilliant.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I will. I'll send you a link, mate. I'll share it with you.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah. My number 10 is this. I'm gonna stay in order. This almost sort of similar thing, like almost unknown band. Like they haven't yet gotten to where they can be, but I found this album so promising that I keep going back to it. It's a band called Ions, and the album is self-titled. It's especially the back half. It's a bit Devin Townsend worshiping. It has trouble finding its own voice and holding on to it throughout the whole album. But if you like Devin Townsend, if you dig that sort of stuff, I recommend a band called Ions. It should be on all the streaming platforms, and really, really good stuff. But more than anything, just a really promising album.
Right. So is that their first album?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. So. Yeah, so basically, if you're into Devin Townsend, i.e. if you're easily pleased by the sound of epic chords and songs going nowhere, then that's your kind of thing, yeah?
Well, lots of, build-up and climax and variety and, just sort of adventures, in music, which I enjoy.
Yeah, no, fair enough, man, fair enough. I figured out the other day the reason I can't seem to get on with... Devin Townsend is just that all of his songs have these amazing intros, and then you realise 5 minutes later it's still the same song, and you haven't been paying attention for the last 3 minutes. So next up is Exhumer. This was early on this year. I was kind of like going off it about this album. Some people got into it, some people didn't. The album is Hostile Defiance. I love it. Straight ahead, old school thrash, brought up to date, but also a kind of refreshing production on it as well. It's not your typical Pro Tool bullshit. There's almost like a lack of dynamics on it. They've really stripped it back, and look, I love it. It's just straight ahead, good thrash metal, and definitely worth a shout. And they're a band that will be close to my heart. I got into them on their very first album, Possessed by Fire. That was a Shades purchase for me in my youth, and they'll always have a special place in my heart. So it was lovely that they came back with such a strong album this year. So there you go. Exhumer is next on my list, and that's Hostile Defiance.
I find that I'm listening to less and less death metal over time. Maybe it's just a phase, or I'm not sure, but the band that I do keep going back to is my number 9, which is Elysian. Their Apoptosis is what it's called. It's just really, really technical, interesting, and this isn't like their best work. This is probably my second or third favorite Elysian album, but these guys just keep on, I don't know how to describe it, just keep on doing new things with the technical death genre that I find really, really interesting. And it reminds me of early Carcass, where you'd listen to Carcass and you'd hear these great melodies that are sort of buried underneath all of the layers and layers of grind. And same thing with Elysian, only I think that they're doing it very, very consciously, if Carcass was not. And I have no idea if they were or not. But Elysian are doing it really consciously, where it's just really interesting melodies going on that are just sort of buried in the technical performance. And so Elysian, Apoptosis, definitely recommend it.
Well, I think if a band keep bringing you back to the genre, that's always a good sign. That's obviously a sign that's like, yeah, you know, these guys are at the top of what they do, or at least they are for you.
Absolutely.
Cool, man.
Oh, I don't think that is just for me. I really think this is a pretty objective analysis.
Okay, fine. Next up on my list is a few albums I got all together at one time, and this is another one of them. Candlemas, The Door to Doom. What a fantastic comeback! I have not dug any Candlemas for some time, and it's just superb. Original singer back, some massive fucking grooves, massive riffs. You know, very, very doomy. Very. I have not purchased or listened to music like this for over 20 years, without a doubt. Probably Candlemas Nightfall was the last time I was as impressed with something. A fucking absolutely outstanding album, full of just classic doom metal, but in a kind of heavy metal doom metal kind of way, you know, more Sabbath, less Cathedral, more. It's fucking great. Honestly, absolutely great, and really took me back to the old days. So, you know, there you go.
Fun. I think coming from a completely different direction was my number 8, which is the new Whitechapel called The Valley. It's a concept album, if that's your thing, but you know, just a really brutal deathcore, and just another really great addition to that you know sub genre. And again, another band that do it better than anybody, but another example of like not the best album in their catalog, but it's so good and so much above everything else that was coming out this year. I recommend it.
Look, anything that you recommend to our listeners, I'm sure they're almost certain to avoid. Next up for me, it's been, I mean, you know, I've gone with like Exhumer, Old Men, Candlemas, Old Men, and keeping up that theme is Dream Theater, Distance Over Time, a return to form, a brutally heavy record in parts, a brutally melodic record in parts. Full of great performances as always. Some wonderful melodies. Return to form. Really enjoyed it. Nothing else to say. Everyone knows what Dream Theater are like.
Definitely. The new Born of Osiris is called The Simulation. Born of Osiris, if you're not familiar, is again very technical, but very, very melodic metal, and just sort of heavy on the production side of things. They're very, very heavy on just sounding almost mechanical in what they do, but it really, really works, and it's they have a very unique sound, I find, and really, really enjoyed The Simulation. Was surprised that it didn't get higher accolades when it was released.
And why do you think that is?
I think that it's sort of it's funny because I think about it almost in the context of like, you know, your list is so far been, you know, bands who have been around for 20, 30, 50, 100 years. And then there are bands who are like new that will make other people's lists where it's like, you know, it's their debut, it's their second album, and they're still exciting and new, and people are latching onto that. But then there are bands like Born of Osiris who they're 5 albums in or so, 4, 5, 6 albums in, and I think people start taking some of these artists for granted at that point in their career. It's like, well, I know you're going to come back with another album in 2 years, and then there'll be another one in 2 years, and so it's easy to kind of just take them for granted. So I think that that's the spot that a band like Born of Osiris is in. I think that the album probably lacks. Same thing with Whitechapel, and Whitechapel might be a bigger example of this. The album doesn't have like The Saw Is the Law on it, which is like just an incredible single. Like it's their ace of spades, and same thing with Born of Osiris. It doesn't have that super standout track. It's just a really great collection of great songs and just no standout single. And I think that that's part of what both of these albums probably lack in order to get more attention.
Wow. Well, in that case, I'm coming at you with an album that is absolutely packed full of singles. Yeah, and that is Korn, The Nothing. Yeah, I was really, really merrily, happily blown the fuck away with this. Jonathan Davis's vocals are tremendous, which is about time. In my opinion, he's been slacking, but he's gone back to the old school. There is just loads of multi-layered vocals in it, big choruses, and iconic fucking shout out pieces, and just it is the Korn that you know and love or know and hate. It's just an outstanding, and I keep using this phrase with so many bands like Candlemass, like Dream Theater, like Exhumer. I'm going to use the phrase again. It's a return to form. But with all these bands, by a return to form, I mean they've gone back to what made them fucking successful in the first place and gone, do you know what? Let's do this. And it's fantastic. Korn, Exhumer, Candlemass, Dream Theater, all four of them have said, do you know what? Progression is all very well, but shall we just stick to what we're good at on this one? And I think all four bands have benefited hugely. Korn, The Nothing, absolutely fucking outstanding album. And if I was doing this in order, that would be that would be in an argument for the number one spot.
Wow.
I know. I'm as surprised as you are, mate.
Yeah. My number 6 is a band, sort of in the context of what we were talking about, either they've been around forever or they just arrived. And this band, it's their second album, and I've got a soft spot for metalcore over the last few years. This band does it very, very well and getting a huge attention for it. Surprised that this is sort of an opposite thing. I thought that this album was really great. Was surprised that it got as much attention and as big a response as it did. It's I Prevail. The album's called Trauma, and really good, super hook heavy, filled with potential singles, and the attention they're getting is warranted.
I think I tried with I Prevail. I think I heard you mention it earlier in the year, and I tried with it. But I couldn't prevail. I did not prevail. They did. I'm sure someone has done that somewhere else at some point. That was terrible. Well, I'm actually going to mention a band because at the moment it's great how we're both like, here's mine, and you go, oh right, okay, here's mine, and there's like zero crossover whatsoever. There's not like, oh man, where did you have this? Oh, I had that in my number 3. There's none of that. There's like, no, here's a load of stuff I like, and here's a load of stuff you like, and let's not fight about it. But here is a band that, I don't know, I'm sure you would have mentioned by now, but incredibly consistent band. These guys haven't returned to form. They are continuing on excellent form and following up to their previous album, Few. He is legend. White Bat is a fantastic album. They've done it again. I know. I thought you were a bit of a fan.
I do like them. I don't think I even gave the new album a try. I'll have to give that a shot.
Yeah, man. Oh, it's a great album. I mean, you can't go wrong with them, with those guys at the moment. That Few was a great album, and that is spelled Few, not me going Few. That was a great album. But this White Bat again is great. There's some fantastic lyrics on it, and they're so indescribable because there's times where they're so fucking heavy they can't be anything but metal, and then there's times that they're so kooky they can't be anything than indie. And then there's other times where you're just like, I don't know what the fuck they are. They literally, you know what I mean though? It's like, it's like they're their own genre. They're a bit like, they're like Billy Talent like that. They're just a really fucking good band and that'll just have to do.
I think my number 5 fits that description fairly well too. It wasn't their second album, but I still had this fear that they would experience a sophomore slump, as they used to call it. The album that they put out a couple of years ago was my number 1, and I felt like was perhaps one of the greatest albums in the history of metal altogether. It wasn't their first album. I think they had one album prior, maybe an EP as well. But it was the first one that like really, really hit and got everybody's attention. That was Air by Astronoid. And they came back with a self-titled follow-up this year that is fantastic. It isn't quite as great as Air. I thought that the difference really was the production. I really liked the production on Air. It was much cleaner than it was on the self-titled album. But again, really fantastic songs. What they're doing is they're taking that that sort of new wave of black metal style underneath, which the blast beats and the just wall of riff. But then what Astronoid does different is they layer on clean vocals on top of it, and it just sounds, it's utterly unique in metal and in music in general, and it I'm a huge fan of that new style of that new take on black metal, and these guys are doing that with another twist on top of it, and it really is an amazing listen. Astronoid.
I do know a few people I've seen that in top 10s list, and I know a few people who really rate it. It's just not. Yeah, it's that's off my reservation. I've like I said, after Death, there's a real big fucking drop off to the rest of death metal. For me, but that's just me. So, if there was a top 4, this would be it. And this is not 4th place again. This is another outstanding record this year. And I'm not going to call it a return to form, but when I heard that this band were going to attempt this, I was very, very curious and doubtful that it could be done. But they have done it. One of the greatest debut albums of all time is Life of Agony, The River Runs Red, a concept album written by a bunch of teenagers and guys in their early 20s that has absolutely no right to be as brilliant and thoughtful and superbly written as it is. And all these years later, Life of Agony decide to follow up on that story and bring it to its logical conclusion. The Sound of Scars is an absolutely ass-kicking, really heavy, really hard rock album. It's not, and by that I mean it's metal, yeah, obviously, it's Life of Agony. But the reason I say hard rock is it's got a hard rock aesthetic to it, kind of atmosphere to it. It is absolutely superb. Talk about hooks in abundance. Mina's performance on it is superb. So is the new drummer, whose name I forget. My apologies. It's not because I'm a sexist. I'm just shit with names. I had an Alan Partridge moment with her where I was like, oh, sounds really good. Close your eyes. Could have been a man. I don't know. My inner sexism was definitely caught out by that. But Life of Agony, Sound of Scars, just fucking get it listened to. Superb album.
So much respect for Manny Caputo. Oh my goodness. Amazing person. My number 4 you're gonna hate is the new Devin Townsend, Empath.
Hey, I've got no empathy with that one.
Because it's just again, you either love it or you hate it. But this was an incredibly ambitious album that it delivered on all of the promise, and it's one of those few, very, very few albums that you can't put it on in the background. You have to just say, hey, look, rather than putting on Netflix, I'm putting on this new Devin Townsend album, and it just takes you in. It's one of the most ambitious and incredible metal albums in metal history, and so glad to have had the opportunity to listen to it, and so glad he was willing to deliver it.
Well, what can I say? I wouldn't say I hate it. I mean, the thing about Devin is he's done something that, he's got such a body of work that he could, there's so much to choose from, and that I really admire. And there's one album of his I do like, but I've heard bits of it, and just sounded like every other bit of Devin Townsend I've ever heard. It's like, wow, that's amazing. That's a huge God. It's epic. It sounds like in the church. Wow, that's unbelievable. 3 minutes later, I'm not going wow anymore. It still hasn't progressed. Still sounds like a fucking intro. And anyway, thanks for calling, Devon. Well, my next album is a bit of a strange one. Discovered whilst being sent links to people who were covering Acid Rain's new album release and saying, there's this here and this here. I was directed to YouTube, where there was a guy, sort of vague European guy, going on about bands from countries. And representing Croatia, we have a band called Arises, and the album is called System. And I sort of caught about 30 seconds of it, and I was like, that's quality. That is like, wow, that's good. So, and it was after they're like, right, next up from Croatia. So straight away I was like, all right, this is going to be maybe not that great, but because I'm like that. And it's fantastic. Really good. Reminds me a lot of The Haunted. Now, I'm a little bit half in, half out about this being on my albums of the year, because, I mean, I cannot stop playing it at the moment. Every track is a fucking killer. I love it. But will I still be loving it in 3 months' time? I kind of feel I will. So that's why it's in my top 10. But there could be a case for me further down the line actually not having it in my top 10. But it's, out of all of the bands on my list, it's the only band that I knew nothing of. Well, actually, Arises and Zombie Apocalypse are the two bands that I knew nothing of at the beginning of the year. Everything else is, is people delivering who I was hoping would deliver. But Arises was just fantastic Croatian metal.
Very cool. I can't wait to check that out.
Oh, you will. You will be able to wait, mate. You will, because I'll play it to you and you'll be like, man, these people are from Croatia, but they sound so fucking boring.
Oh, man. Well, my number 3, I had not heard of these guys before either, but I think they have been around for at least a little while, 5 to 6 years. Metalcore, probably the best songs of any album on my top 10 list, and had a very, very strong argument, spent much of the year as my number 1. It's Erase the Pain by Palisades. Just super awesome hooks, super fantastic, and amazing. Really, really love this album, and we'll be playing it for years to come.
Wow, right, okay. Palisades. I thought you said Power Slaves for a minute there.
Oh.
No. I thought it was some sort of maiden tribute band. Okay, so my number 2, although it's, as I keep saying, my number 2 on the list, I've only had it for a very short time. In fact, I only discovered it this week. Was it this week? Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah, it was this week. I actually discovered this album on Tuesday, and I downloaded it straight away. Funnily enough, it was number one on an album of the year list that a journalist did, and we were about like number 8 or something on his list, and this was number one, and I was like, Jesus, I didn't even know they had an album out. So I downloaded it, started listening to it, loved it, walked into a record shop whilst I was listening to it for the first time, found it on CD, £8, got to be done, and that is the 2019 release from New Model Army. The album is called From Here, and there is so much music in every song. It is just music to get lost in. It's absolutely fantastic, and a real experience.
Can I do a quick shout out? Like, my favorite reunion of this year is a band that did an amazing New Model Army cover back in the early 90s. Anacrusis reunited this year, and man, I wanted to make that road trip to go see that reunion show. Anacrusis, if you've never heard the albums Manic Impressions or Sound the Alarm.
I think we were label mates. Back in the day, I got to be honest.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Fantastic band. In my opinion, one of the most important, well, I'd say one of the most underrated and underappreciated metal bands from that era. And one of those bands that if they had been more influential than they are, metal would be in an even better place than it is today.
Well, I know you feel strongly about them because I think they came into the conversation when we went to see the Beyond, where I think you had a sort of a similar affection for Anacrusis as you do the Beyond.
Definitely. My number 2 is Return to Form. Like, this is a band that I heard for years. Everybody was like, oh my God, they're so great. And then for years I heard, oh my God, what happened to them? They suck. And then I heard the new album, and the whole time I was like, it's all meh. But then I heard the new album, and it blows me away. So I think on a number of lists, people are calling this a return to form. For me, this is like a revelation. But it's a revelation that I still have no interest in going back into the rest of their catalog. It's not like what they did on the new album is that much different. It's just so much better. It's the new In Flames called I the Mask.
Right. Wow, right. Right, I might have to have a listen because I couldn't give a toss about that band. I really couldn't.
Yeah. That was my impression for the longest time, and then, I would almost every weekend I'd throw on the new singles for the week, and, I just let it go in the background, and if something catches my attention, then I put it back into the list, and if it catches my attention a second time, now I'm going to go listen to the whole album, and when this song popped up twice, and both times I was like, who's this? And I'm like, In Flames, really? And then I went to the album, and the whole album delivers. It just delivers. So good.
Oh, cool, man. Cool. Right. Well, that brings us, and I am going to check that out because I've always felt the same as you, just absolutely meh. Well, that phrase "return to form" pops up yet again. Finally on my list. It's been popping up in a few other people's album of the year's list as well. And funnily enough, I noticed Neil Cooper, former drummer of the Beyond and current drummer of Therapy, and the Evil Priest bass player in Therapy, both have this album in their top 10 albums of the year. And it is, of course, The Age of Entitlement by Acid Rain. Of course I was going to fucking put this here after saying all that shit about everybody else. Yeah, Return to Form. Wow, what a nice surprise. God, it's been so many years and I didn't think they were capable. I didn't think they had this in them, but they have. And well done. It's great. I love it.
That's awesome. Hey, you know what's funny is like the whole time I'm like, I really should say something, but I just figured that like you can't count it on this show. So that's what I went with. I'm not going to...
Yeah, I know, mate. I know. It's just there's no way I was going to leave it out.
Well, I will tell you, like obviously all your listeners have bought and are listening to that album constantly. And for myself, like I enjoyed the snot out of the new album, and I think it's better than anything you did. I don't think it's a return to form. I think it's well beyond anything that in your catalog previously. And I'm just happy I get to stream it on Google Play Music.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for that. That pays for well, for nothing actually. But so come on then, man. What's the number one? Give us Godless's tip from the top.
Number one, how this album is not everyone's number one is not surprising to me, because I think that everybody is chicken shit. But if all things being equal, if you take that like artist versus the art argument and you go, nope, this is just about the art, then this album, without a doubt, is the number one album of the year, and it's the new As I Lay Dying, Shaped by Fire. Amazing album. I've never been a huge As I Lay Dying fan. This album's got me curious about revisiting the catalog and see if something's up or whatever. But I love this album, and I feel bad that more people were not willing to at least give themselves the chance to like this album, because it's the album of the year.
Would you say that this is the best album recorded by a band whose singer has done time for trying to hire a hitman to kill his wife?
I would say that pretty unequivocally. Now, that's going without assuming that there's somebody else out there.
yeah. I know. I can see where you're going with that, mate, and you probably want to stop.
But almost without a doubt it is, yes, absolutely.
Well, that's, to be honest, that seems like a great place to leave it. The bit where Godless endorses people who wanted to murder their wives.
Now, hold on a second. So, like, the guy did his time.
Yeah.
And he, the people who are closest to him, which would be perhaps not the spouse that he, tried to kill, but like the closest people, which would be the people that were his friends and the people he worked with every day. Those people said they had a conversation with him of some sort. They have a relationship with him and went, okay, like, it all is forgiven, moving on. And those are people who have a relationship with his ex-spouse too. Now, I don't know what that conversation is. I don't know anything about Tim and what Tim was feeling at the time, the whole thing. All I've got is I have to trust that the people that surrounded him had a better information and better judgment than I ever could. And because they are willing to forgive him, I don't see why the rest of us shouldn't too.
I think that's very eloquent and very naive, but there you go. I mean, look, ultimately, I don't disagree with anything you've said there, and separating the art from the artist and all the rest of it. I just think As I Lay Dying is shit. I've never liked them. Christian band. Christian went and tried to hire somebody to murder his wife, so he can go fuck himself as far as I'm concerned. I purely wouldn't give the band any money based on the fact that they used to be a Christian metal band. That's enough for me. That's, it's made all the more hilarious by the fact that Mr. Christian Metal tried to have his wife killed.
That is fun. I agree with that. I mean, now with a little distance, time plus distance, it's humor.
and also what a great Christmassy note to end this. I've got some Patreon questions for you, by the way, mate. But what a lovely Christmassy note to end on. It's the Christian metal band, or is it ex-Christian metal band, whose singer was convicted of trying to hire a hitman to kill his wife. That's Godless's Christmas number one.
Oh man, happy holidays, everybody!
Couldn't have planned it better, could we? Perfect. Yeah, happy holidays. Don't choke on your turkey.
your show again. And hey, best with the NHS.
Thank you very much, man. And always a pleasure having you on. And don't go anywhere because I've got some Patreon questions for you.
Okay.
And there you have it, the Godless, the man himself. We're all done. That is the end of the Christmas podcast. Yes, the next podcast you get will be January, and that will be celebrating 5 years of Talking Bollocks. Wow. 5 fucking years ago. Started just before any talk of bringing a band back and all the rest of it. And now here we are. Quite incredible. Quite incredible. One thing I did want to mention also was that I went to the memorial for Martin Hooker, the Formula Music for Nations boss. The former Music for Nations boss. There were some lovely tributes read out by JJ from Twisted Sister, by Lars from Metallica, by a number of people from various bands. I was the only person there from a band, which I felt quite honoured about, and it was lovely. It was a really nice, positive celebration of his life, and it was just really cool. It was really cool. Anyway, guys, it's been really cool. I hope you had a great Christmas. Made it past the 3-hour barrier for the first time in a long time on one of these motherfuckers, so there's something to be said for that. And you know what? Patrons get even more. Yep, that's right. One final reminder. Patreon.com/Howard H. Smith. Get involved if you want. It costs you $6 a month, and it's well worth it, so the patrons tell me. So anyway, guys, it's been a pleasure. It will continue to be a pleasure. All of you, please spread the word as best you can, because that is, you are the Talking Bollocks army, and without you, I am nothing. Until next year, have a great Christmas, have the rest of whenever you're listening to this, and see you in 2020 for more Talking Bollocks. Later.